Oi! Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Blue Dragon 5 here.
And Jacob Weil.
And Rohith Dar.
Welcome to the final recap podcast we're doing on Ted Lasso Season 3, the final season to a wonderful show.
The second and final podcast that we're doing on this.
That's true, yes. We did kind of a little combination on the first two seasons because we were late to the party on that one, but we were very much anticipating this last season, so we wanted to make sure we got in before the start, so we're kind of closing the loop, much like this season closes the loop on the Ted Lasso story. So that's right, folks. So we're rounding things out. We're talking about the pride and joy of Apple TV Plus that kept us all company when we all couldn't leave the house, and we've grown a nice little soft spot for it, and we're here talking about it.
Oh yeah. Yep. So season 3, which is also the third season that has where Coach Lasso is coaching the Greyhounds.
Yeah, so how we feel about this season, guys? Now we've all seen it. We were thinking about maybe covering week to week, but we figured, let's just let's not put ourselves through a long goodbye. Let's just do it all one big glorious kind of like Sound of Music farewell, one could say.
So long, farewell.
Advidas and goodbye.
Adios.
Adios.
Danny Rojas is a treasure.
That he is. That he is. Ted Lasso's mom approves.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, we're jumping a little ahead here. So overall, how do we feel about the season, guys?
All right, you can go first.
I think overall, in taking a bird's eye view of all 3 seasons, I, in my personal opinion, believe the first season still is the best out of all 3 seasons. And after the first season, I feel like the show lost the comedic sensibilities that really made it a breakout hit and lead on to the drama in seasons 2 and 3. Less so in season 3. I think season 3 in certain parts had sort of the comedic, oomph that was there in the first season, but there's just certain storylines that I feel hindered it from being great. And in my estimation, I think season 3 is certainly a step up above season 2 in terms of the structure, in terms of the way things are. However, there is some structural stuff leading from throughout the season that, even though I feel the ending of the season and the overall ending of the show is a great ending, I think there is some tumbling and just kind of weaving in and out to sort of get to that, promised land ending. And I think when we go through the episodes, I feel like there is something that was lost from the first season, and it's less so in this season, but it is still there. And I think once we get more into the show, I want to sort of elaborate more about where I feel the show is like, almost there, but not fully in my mind.
All right. I guess should I go next then, or Dragon, do you want to go?
Do you have any? Okay, tell you what, I'll go next. All right.
Okay, sorry.
All right. So, yeah. So season 3, I think it's a great final act. I do feel we hit a few lulls here and there after kind of a certain. I think it's the halfway point. So yeah, I think is the Amsterdam episode 6? Do you recall?
Yes, Sunflowers is like the 6th episode.
Oh, there you go then. Yeah, so I feel after the Amsterdam episode, which we'll get into, basically Amsterdam onwards, where we kind of hit a few lulls before we get back into the groove of things. And while I do have some issues here and there, overall mostly minor stuff. It's mostly a pacing thing in terms of like pacing and resolution on one character in particular. Is one character I feel did not. I think we really just we wanted to get him in there, and we just kind of threw stuff at him. We didn't really know what the plan was there. So at the end of the day, despite that, I think we get it done just right at the very end. This season, Ted Lasso, he's determined to win, and see, and we the audience are going to see what he's learned in the 3 seasons. Also, it's really just a little cute little fun. I love that we can because of the football of it all, we can say season, so we're kind of getting away with saying season 3 in a meta way. In a sense, it's kind of fun.
I mean, considering it's set in England,
Yeah,
it would be series.
fair point, but
Yeah, I mean, television seasons are called series over there.
I'm saying we found even so, we still found a loophole. We can say seasons without it meaning seasons literally in the English setting, but still we got away with it.
Yeah.
Regardless, so I think with a lot of characters, especially Ted, but a lot of our characters, almost all of them, we reflect on the big questions this season. The big questions, I mean, kind of throughout the course of the series, but really in this season particularly, the big questions are: what are you doing, and what do you want? Which, I mean, you could apply, I guess, from the start, but this season's where we get the resolutions to a lot of that for him and the players across the board. So it's like when you look at the series as a whole, it's like season 1 is about Ted Lasso giving the relegated league, giving them hope that we could win. Season 2 is kind of inspiring them, and essentially, if I have it right, we kind of exposit at the top of the season. They did get into the big leagues. They're 20th. They're placed 20th in terms of where they're going to rank at the end of the day, which is basically a hair or two away from getting relegated. It sounds like. This season's all about we're gonna teach them the important lessons both in life but also on the field, and we have some really interesting story methods in which we kind of approach okay, how the heck do we end this puppy, and where do we where do we go from here, and in taking our gag premise of American football coach is teaching English English football. So we're kind of one football to the other. We're going to see can he actually go the distance? Can he actually bring home the gold, so to speak? Can he do it? And it's a great journey in getting there. And we did save some really great moments for Ted Lasso along the way. And I think it pays off just tremendously. And it ends just right, which is what you want all these series to do. And I like that Ted Lasso, intentionally or no, because I don't know how they're running things over at Apple TV Plus. I'm sure a big flaw in what they're doing is only you need an Apple device to access the Apple stuff. I don't know why they hate money, but they do.
Well, they don't hate money because if you get an Apple device and pay for that subscription, that's more money to Apple.
Oh, true, but it doesn't feel like anyone who does not have an Apple device, they could still get money from people who are not Apple customers if they would just allow them to be able to access the thing.
Yeah, but it's the business of it is that okay, it's not just you're accessing your catalog, but you're accessing our device that connects you to getting a MacBook or
the only thing you need is an Apple ID. You don't actually need a device to sign up for the service.
Well, still, Jacob, do you have an Apple device that you have to get the ID, put the ID through?
Yeah, there's literally a website you can go to.
Okay, my point is it's not easy. Okay, it's not as easy or publicly known, I should say.
You don't have to have an Apple TV, iPhone, or iPad to watch content from.
Have you told Tiki this by chance?
I've told both of you guys multiple times.
I mean, have you actually walked him through it?
No, I mean, you guys both have Google.
I'm just letting Rohith have a good laugh right now. I'm just waiting for
Oh, you're laughing at what I said, or you're laughing at Rohith's laugh?
Anyway.
You're not even answering my question.
Anyway, the point being, not the easiest streaming service to use, it would seem.
I think just to end this bit of tangent, I think, Jacob, we need to do a live stream of you walking both Blue Dragon and Tiki.
I can access it now, but I guess I use an ID from a device. I don't know what he's talking about. Somehow he lucked into it. And Tiki might just be thick-headed. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know.
You could probably just sign up for an Apple ID without a device.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, these are the specifics we need to know. At the very least, the Apple Apple Company needs to make public so people can access their thing.
I
Hey,
think they
Blue
have-
Dragon, you know if you have any tech issues, just remember to turn on and off and make sure it's connected.
Okay.
I think we irritated him a bit more, Rohith.
Okay, Jacob, how did you feel about the season?
All right, I guess I'll give my thoughts on this. I'm falling somewhere in between probably Rohit and Dragon, to be honest. And as I say this though, it's especially the ending had like some very big highs. Like it knew where it wanted to end, and so I can definitely give it credit for that. And it ended very well. The ending, especially with the song they chose specifically for the last scene, is bound to elicit a few tears. Especially considering it brought to mind Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Mm-hmm.
So that definitely brought some tears to my eyes. I will give it that. But I will say the season is definitely quite bumpy. My biggest complaint is that 12 episodes is fine, but the episodes themselves are just way too long most of the time.
Yeah, I forgot. Towards the end, especially episodes 11, but really 12, they extend the length way beyond an hour.
Yeah, they're both an hour and 15
Okay,
minutes.
fine, not way beyond that, but that beyond an hour.
Well, they're still an hour and 10 minutes long each, several hour long episodes throughout the season, and it wouldn't be so bad if they actually filled them with more interesting things that
we do have some filler plot lines.
Yes, and like I said, I don't even know what they did with Keeley this season up until the very end.
So that was the character I was alluding to. We'll dive into that, but yeah.
Yeah, have you?
I mean, but to finish it overall, I think a lot. Of course, all these great all the great characters, such as some other important issues, and the characters are in different places when they begin, which is a good thing for a sitcom to do. Which is good for a sitcom or any kind of drama to do. I said I will probably contest with what you guys say and the first season probably was the lightning in a bottle that we needed. The second season, I think it still had some of the DNA, and this one definitely still has that. And trust me, some of the moments are laugh out loud funny, and the drama is actually. I just don't think the drama or stakes is as palpable as it was in season 2, despite the whole championship thing. But overall, I'd say it was a decent season. And going for the finale, I gotta say, until we meet again, Ted Lasso.
Yep.
Sorry, what were you guys saying though?
Yeah, Rohit, you were gonna say something.
Yeah, so I guess we can just jump into the structure of the season. So, had you both were following or keeping up to date about the development of this season?
I watched it week to week. I did not keep up. All I knew development wise is that it sounded like they announced it was going to be the last season. Then there was a little question of if it performs well, will it be open ended? But it seems like from the get go, this thing was planned to be. I'm guessing it was planned to be the final season. Once the word came down, I now hear there might be talk of a spinoff.
The only development I was aware was that Bill Lawrence or whatever left the showrunning capabilities to take care of to do. Shrinking, and basically left Jason Sudeikis as the sole showrunner.
So I'm glad you pointed that out, because after the first season, I believe the second season's Bill Lawrence and Jason Sudeikis co-share or co-showrunners, and third season Jason Sudeikis I think is the full showrunner. And I remember hearing I don't know if it reports or rumors, I heard sort of, and this season was going to come up. I think, I don't know how much earlier, but it was going to definitely come out earlier. But there was delays because, at least from what I heard through blind items and whatnot, was that there was just constant rewrites. And I feel
it kind of shows. It kind of shows a bit.
Yeah, and
rewrites aren't necessarily inherently.
No, you're right. I'm just saying the rewrite, just in the sense of okay, we're unsure of, we might have to readjust our ideas. They have some plot lines here. It feels like maybe we changed a few things and we kind of ended up with what we ended up with.
I think it's very telling in that the episode lengths. It's I remember there was actually an interview that with Bill Lawrence, and Bill Lawrence talked about it for Ted Lasso season 3. it's like, in terms of my instincts as a showrunner and being from the comedy world, it just does. I just feel I kind of bristle at going beyond the half hour mark for a comedy, and I don't think he was very much criticized, but I think it's interesting to think about how each episode is an hour long, and I feel like for Jason Sudeikis, like he's from SNL and he started lightning the bottle the first season, Ted Lasso. I think he was bit off more than he chew in terms of how to balance um, the comedy and drama. So where because I feel like there's like a few really good standard episodes, but for the most part, there's always a thing where it's like certain episodes have really good dramatic moments, the comedy's okay, and then the opposite where like the comedy's really good, but the drama's like so and so are okay. And I think the expanded episode length kind of hurt not like hurt the pacing of the show because I can't like I haven't binge watched the third season obviously, but if I were to binge watch it, I feel like the momentum, the briskness that I think the first season and to a certain extent the second season won't be there as much, and I think the enjoyment might hit a bit less.
I mean, I can attest that because the thing is, I basically did binge binge this season.
Mm-hmm. So did you feel the pacing was sort of kind of?
We should probably say this too, just real quick. It's like we all have kind of an interesting, kind of different viewing kind of thing for what we're doing here today. Because Jacob just binged it all, very recently. Now that it was all finished, he watched it all in a row. Rohith and I were week to week, but I've had the chance to rewatch it after week to week, so it's kind of
Okay. So we all have, that's interesting. So
yeah,
for you guys, since you watched all season 3, did you feel the pacing was a little like it's just kind of not meandering, but just not as like tight? Like
I think the issue is that like this is actually probably something that would either benefit from like double the episodes or at least like reducing the episodes still back down to 30 minutes, but either doubling the number of episodes or giving them a fourth season entirely.
Yeah, I'm curious your guys' opinion on this. Did it feel like the first episode was like a meta response to the ideas people had of like, oh, maybe Ted Lasso goes beyond the initial third season, and it was like Jason Sudeikis was like, self-correcting and reaffirming this is the final season?
It's entirely. I'm not sure.
I mean, when I go back when I rewatch the show,
my main issue is that like a lot of the stuff, a lot of the plot lines, like they're introduced and then rushed through. Like they introduced new plot lines before they even tried to rush through the pre-existing ones.
So when I rewatch the show, two things kind of occur to me because when I look back on it, there are a lot of really great seeds that are planted that do pay off really nicely, and they do carry throughout the season. So I can kind of see the DNA of like, okay, we're approaching this as the last season, but by that same token, like in episode 1, we're planting the seeds of like what's going through Ted's head, and obviously the father son kind of story that's going on there, and we end on like we open and close on the same shot with like him sad to him happy at the end with the headshot, and by that token though, when you think about our penultimate episode, which is good, but when you think about it, while good as it is, it does read like we kind of it is maybe a little rushed in terms of like what the big like kind of light bulb moment catharsis was for our penultimate, which is like Ted has a realization is brought about by kind of this random occurrence, but I mean, maybe not random, and yeah,
I just think it's basically improvement to put on your point. It's like it is kind of weird that in the penultimate episode they decide to finally introduce his mom.
That's the thing. Now, I mean, here's the thing. It kind of makes sense, but it feels like that's a big event that we're kind of shoehorning in like the second to last episode, in which, okay, I think the idea is like we're seeing where Ted Lasso gets his unflappable optimism from.
And his alliteration and rhyming.
Yeah, and it's kind of a question of like, do we have enough time to really live in it with that character in one episode when we maybe could have gotten at least 2 episodes out of her?
No.
But then there's a risk of like then we're spending too much time on her. But it feels like one episode might be fine, but putting it right before the end, and she's gonna have like a big plot point to essentially to drop on his lap there, that's going to get us to get to his decision for the last episode. I mean, that might be a lot of responsibility for the penultimate episode.
I really think this season really kind of had the issue of not knowing how to prioritize, not knowing and not really having really solid story arcs for each of the characters, or if they did, they just weren't well developed. I think it was just a lot of spinning plates, and some plates were still spinning, and some plates like fell but didn't break and brought back up with little cracks in them, and some plates did fell and break. If that a metaphor makes sense, right? And I think with the first episode, what I mean to say about the meta-ness is that like it feels me when I watch the first episode of the season, it's like, oh, I feel like Jason Sudeikis is like mentally like, hey, I need to make clear this is the third season, and I have to then bring up stuff from like the first season. Like I know it's the circle back thing, but the way that first episode went is like, oh, this feels I can feel the rewrites where it's like maybe the way the third season was originally written or structured, wasn't like a final season, but maybe through the rewrites, Jason Sudeikis was just trying to, weld it into being that full circle. Like it was like if like Ted Lasso was like a movie trilogy, usually every third movie in a trilogy takes stuff from the first movie, circles back and shows how the characters are acting and are acting differently in light of the circumstances that are similar to the first movie.
Oh, that's true, Rohith. I don't think that's a bad thing.
I don't think it's a bad. I wasn't saying it's a bad thing, but it's like I think it was indicative of a larger thing where it's like you can see the scenes where it's like, okay, it seems Jason Sudeikis is just trying to have something for everyone, but it's not equally interesting or equally fleshed out. And the one thing that I think was a really big disservice in terms of storytelling, in terms of the arc and all that, I think Keely's story just did not do any service to her.
Do you want to just break down the flaws in the Keely story, then we get into all the other stuff? Or
like us three, or me just explain what I found?
Well, no, I mean like just right now. Do you want to just tackle the Keely stuff? And
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so here's the issue. Here's what I think went wrong with the Keely story. So, it's the problem to me. It's the I think it sounds like all of us. It's the problem spot of the season. If I had to pick one arc in particular, especially arc being the operative word, because I don't think our payoff is good with it, probably because of those. I had no idea about the rewrites going into this, but essentially it sounds like because of those rewrites. It has. There's really nothing for her to do, and it's kind of suffering from the choices made. And I don't know if this is like a Bill Lawrence came up with the idea, and then Sudeikis just kind of ran with it. Again, I'm not operating off spec on that one. It's just the fact that we took her, we suggested that Roy and Keely might be breaking up. It was, I think Rohith was onto it a lot more further than I was. I don't know if it was I and Jacob, but it was basically hinting at, yeah, they're very likely broken up. I was thinking a long distance relationship. We did not go that way, and the first episode very much confirms that over ice cream. That they're definitely broken up.
It's just speaking of which, that's an example of a lot of major events in this series, in this season, that happen off screen.
I saw that criticism a lot in the Ted Lasso subreddit. People were complaining about how like certain payoffs or certain beats that would typically, like in the first season, like a lot of character development is shown on the screen and thus doesn't leave much implication. And third season the opposite. It's like very little do you see the characters actually develop, and you see steps being made. It's like problem, off-screen solving problem, and then the solution to the problem and moving on to the next thing.
See, when I look at the Keely story, I think retroactively, I think if they had the opportunity, they would maybe reconsider, like taking her out of the PR job, because out of like working with the team, because in doing so, we limit her, because we have to go out of our way to find ways to bring Keely into the story, aside from like, oh yeah, she's friends with Rebecca, so that's how we'll keep her in the story. Aside from that, it's like, well, we have to see what Keely's up to versus just having her around and doing stuff in relation to our main plot.
It's like it didn't even. I mean, it's just like, oh, she's suddenly the head of her own QR or her own PR firm.
I mean, I admittedly we did set up that's what she was going to do, but by the same token, though, it feels like, okay, so we're severing all the ties when we shouldn't have severed all the ties. Like we broke her up with Roy, and
you go ahead. I'll say my thing out first.
It's basically, so she broke up with Roy, and ultimately she does not end up with the redeemed Jamie, in which it seems like we were really hinting at that. And I'm not saying necessarily we have to have everyone end up with certain people. But it feels like if you're leading us down that path, and you're even doing like a big will they won't they thing, and it's a question of like, oh, who's gonna do it? You end on like a gag of like, what effing idiots, you know? It's like, where's the resolution there? And we just kind of skipped over that. With Keeley, we gave her another love interest, and that also petered out. And it feels like we just were really just spinning our. We were just spinning everything here. We just really did not have a direction to go in with Keeley. We just wanted to give her something to do, and just like, hey, it's Keeley. We like Keeley, don't we?
Yeah, and like, I mean, like, she was more endearing when she was actually interacting with the rest of the crew. Like interactions with Ted in seasons 1 and 2 were fantastic.
It's just Keeley's dating life for the whole season, and we don't have her end up with anyone. That feels really strange to me.
So I have something to add to that. So I don't know if y'all were.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, she doesn't necessarily have to end up with anyone, but it does. I mean, as long as she's self-affirmed and everything, and like she didn't
say how she felt about it. She just kicked him out. That was the gag. It was that, and then Women's League for Richmond. That was the only payoff that we got, and it just came out of nowhere.
No. So
yeah, they basically turned her development into a joke.
All right, okay, what you got?
So I don't know if y'all. I think you guys probably didn't know this, but I found out about this like a few weeks ago, and it definitely explains a lot. So Juno Temple, I don't know if it was something of a project involved, whatever. She was not in the same set as everyone else.
Get out of here! Really?
Yes. So you notice she's doesn't have any scenes with like the rest of the cast members.
Well, except Roy.
Yeah, but
no, she does have with Roy and Jimmy. Right, not in a group setting though.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and I think Juno Temple, the actress, like had like a scheduling thing with another project or something else to where like that kind of limited her involvement. So I think that's probably, I don't know, maybe that's where the writing was impacted because of Juno Temple's schedule or vice versa. And it's like, man, I feel like at that point I kind of would have just rather have Keeley been away. I think it would have been a bold move if you didn't have Keeley for most of the season. And she came back in the last few episodes. And I think it would be interesting for Jamie and Roy to really develop as like sort of a brotherhood in a way. And then when
or like a father-son.
Well,
like a father-son mentorship kind of thing.
Sure. I guess I just think, they're players.
Well, I mean, they literally said like he's your best. We had like the whole Uncle Roy Day thing, which is it's a wonderful setup in which it's like he's your best friend, Uncle Roy. He's not my best friend. They're best friends.
And they both. It's like, quite frankly, I would have liked to see more of Roy's sister and niece.
That's the thing. I think am I crazy? Is that the first time we saw her? Did we see her once before?
No, I think we saw her once before.
We saw her. No, we saw her once before.
We've seen Phoebe more times than we've seen.
I know that we've seen Phoebe a bunch.
I mean that's one of the ways that Ted actually warmed up to Roy.
Yeah, exactly.
No. I think we saw Phoebe at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, no,
and then it's certainly interesting. I think it would have been interesting for Roy and Jamie to have been together for most of the season, gone through their issues, resolve it, and then when Keeley came back, it's like Keeley came back to see these two men that have had such contentious issues grow up to be like more emotionally healthy men. And I think that would have been like, because I feel like for Keeley, like her arc was, I think, done in the first or second season.
Yeah.
And I just didn't think there was anything more to do with Keeley. And I feel like that at that point you shouldn't, I feel like her put her in a PR. Here's the thing. Like, this is the thing I'm pointing out to my. This is something I mentioned out from my friends. We're watching Ted Lasso this season. No, we don't actually see like what like things that the PR firm does. It's just she just goes into an office space. It's all
and a lamb poops on a table. It's really as much as far.
Yeah, and it's like okay, like is she like? I feel like okay, I don't see her like actually working or like getting jobs and making a name for herself. They're just like. It might as well just be like an empty, like, she
tried doing like a dating app, and that's as far as we really did.
Yeah, and the whole subplot with her friend just was ultimately proved to be nothing.
And nothing.
Shandy.
Yeah, Shandy. Yeah, the arc with Shandy ended up being ultimately pointless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like because it's like
no revenge except from the lamb. Nothing.
Well, did you guys? Okay, I don't know if I was being too like like archy and or like big endgame season sort of stuff. It's like I crazy in thinking that Shandy like saying you'll regret this. I was like Shandy's gonna like team up with like Rupert through West Ham or something like that, or like.
I mean, initially I did, but then we had that scene with the lambs. Oh, I guess that's her revenge. I mean, it's just kind of pathetic, but yeah,
it feels
no
weird.
Akufo's revenge is diabolical.
I mean, trust me. I mean, I was kind of expecting like to use her advantage, like either like Keely was gonna like help her improve or something like that, because like the way like Keely showed. I mean, Shandy showed her know-how and shooting the commercial. That
basically what we did is we replaced Shandy with Jack. That's just we gave her basically keep giving Keely female friends that just kind of goes a certain way.
Shandy showed her know-how with how to shoot the commercial, and I thought thinking that Keely would actually show her how to improve and utilize her skills in certain ways, but no, Shandy just like I just want to make an app that helps people bang celebrities.
Yeah,
and then I want to have a lamb poop on someone's table because I don't like them anymore.
It's crazy that like Shandy's app didn't somehow became a prominent thing that would have gotten like a player in hot water or something like that.
No, for sure.
I mean, it would have been a nice compliment to what happened with Keely herself.
Yeah, that's the thing. You think maybe here's a better idea. What if she leaked the sex tape?
Yeah, that would have been much.
You go.
Or if it wasn't Keely, it was like just a player. Maybe that. Or I mean, I appreciate them not doing this, but imagine if Colin was outed through that app.
Yeah, it would have been a way to go, but yeah, you're right. If something ramifications that Keely would have felt really bad about.
I mean, they really should have focused. Like they could have focused on like how like sexism and kind of stuff like that focuses men too.
Yeah, no, it's like it would have been interesting to see like Shandy was just like an obnoxious human being, but it would have been interesting to see like how she could have just like maybe made a certain male player, just like a male coworker or whatnot, uncomfortable, and that would have been something that would have been interesting to see because the show is very open-minded and forward-thinking about like certain dynamics and.
Like she could have created like a media scandal or something.
Yeah, and you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the thing in season 2 where like Sam taking a stand against the Nigerian government for colluding with the oil company. There's really not much dramatic ramifications for him. In the real world, if a player like Sam did what he did, there would have been major consequences. And I just feel like this is kind of a lot of the times in the second, third season, there's like stuff that should be dramatic and should have people talking. And it's not, I don't want to make it seem like, I don't want it to come to make it dramatic in the sense that the team is divided and, it's contentious in the bullpen.
Basically real world consequence. You're looking for real world.
No. And it's like,
just like dramatic stakes.
Yeah. Cause like in the second season, there was talks about how like, we're strapped for cash potentially. And I remember the one scene that really is crazy that didn't get any follow through on is season 2 where where like Ted, Nate, Beard, and Roy just blurt out their biggest secret, and it's like, I forget to like scout a player in, I don't repeat the reports or blah blah blah, and it's like, if someone was there and leaked it out, like that would have it's
like Nate if Nate really went turncoat on that one.
Yeah, no, it's like if like after the first season, it feels to me that the show kind of was a little too unwilling to get out of its like comfort blanket. And I remember my friend he's been very critical of the show after the first season. And there's a certain point that I kind of agree with is that the show after the first season really kind of just went all in on like the heartwarming moments where I think people forget that the first season had some biting, like not satirical edge, but there was for Ted's Nicest, there was some like opposing opposite, force that conflicted, that clashed. And it was
Jamie in the first season.
Jamie and Roy, they were like that.
Yeah,
Jamie and Roy were like the best reasons to watch the first season outside of Ted himself.
Yeah, like Roy writing choke on a Big Mac is is one of the great moments, and like and it's like, oh, it's Roy. It's like, how do you know? He's signing. It's like, Roy. It's after the
Like a
first
brunette Oscar Grouch.
no, and the second season there could have been some antagonism or some tension with like Dr. Sharon, and that's only lasts for maybe a bit in the beginning, and then
Until her car accident, really.
And also when he calls her about his panic attacks.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, that's what I said. That's what I meant earlier when I was like, it doesn't have like the dramatic even stakes as season 2 did.
I mean, so I guess the closest we have 2 dramatic elements to the season, and I think they are good, but they aren't really like things that like reverberate really through the season. There's kind of dramatic things with 2 of our characters, but they're good dramatic things that happen with our 2 characters. We have Sam, poor Sam Abesanya this season. Oh, my heart breaks for this kid. He kind of mixes it up with what is it,
the restaurant?
No, well, yeah, but what happens with the restaurant? But Brenda Barrett?
Oh, the foreign minister.
Yeah, the UK, the minister of the one that basically is very anti-immigration. It seems over in the UK, very much like we're not letting anyone from Nigeria come over in the boat. Yeah. So that whole thing, of course, him being very diplomatic, saying, I don't think this is the best course of action, and she's just saying, dribble your ball, and then it basically turns everyone on him, and his poor restaurant gets vandalized and everything. And I mean, I felt, again, there's a dramatic point for that character. He's like saying, look, everything I do, every time I take, I try to help and kind of speak my mind. I'm always like criticized, and if I don't play well here, what does that say about it? And he's really in a tailspin there, and he has like really great breakdown. And his father's there, really kind of. I love his father, by the way. I love how Ted Lasso gets along with his father. He's like, let's have some of that bad sugar,
high fructose corn syrup.
Nobody's called bad sugar over here, but yeah, we got all that. So,
Sam's father's delightful.
Yeah.
Certainly. So I'm saying we put Sam through the ringer with that, and although I think the worst thing we do to him is Edwin Akufo's revenge is just it's comedic, mind you, but it's comedic and petty, but brutal.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so straight up petty. It's just like, it was a shame to see you not get on the Nigerian team, but I was also glad to see you not get on the Nigerian team. And I was also glad to see them accept the $25 million check not to put you on the team.
The free $20 million check.
It's like, yeah, he paid them not to put him on the team. That's just extremely petty.
See, to me, here's the thing.
It's like you won't join my team? Well, I'll make sure you don't join a team that you want.
So that's the thing. It feels like they may have learned from the mistake on the lack of consequence there, where it feels like this is kind of like, hey, the Nigerian, he bribed the Nigerian government, who probably would be like, yeah, I was saying you guys said some not so nice things about us. Like, yeah, we'll take that $20 million check, bring it on over.
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't know if the show wasn't willing to go into the area or they were just kind of struggling.
He's opening another Nigerian restaurant 20 meters.
No. What I was going to say, like, regards to the whole, like,
yeah, and the thing is, we never actually see the restaurant.
I assume he didn't go through with it because he probably did poor when the whole the Super League broke down. But yeah, Rohith, what do you got?
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is someone made this observation is that, like, after the first season, Sam kind of went from being one of the main characters to kind of being somewhat sidelined, and like after the second season where like he shacks up with Rebecca and all that stuff,
which wasn't really addressed in this season at all.
Well, there was like one moment, but it was like it was 2 moments. One was a gag, the other one was kind of a nice wistful moment, and it is kind of a shame. But Sam ended up seemingly with his cook, which again is another thing we time skipped over, by the way. But
what I was meaning to say is that, like, with the whole, like, him getting bashed by the minister and all that stuff, it's like, considering like the show has like kind of lightly touched upon like race and like with the whole like Sam not accepting the military man because of imperialism, it's like it feels weird to me that that the show never did an episode or 2 or just even a scene of like fans not responding positively to Sam in light of the whole like him pushing back against the minister and stuff like that. There was like, considering we made it like a scene a big deal about like a fan being homophobic and causing like Isaac to go crazy and just go, and have him be kicked out. That felt weird to me that like Sam is dealing with these like flashpoints in which like his background and like is being demonized or
Yeah, we're not treating the Nigerians well, as we've
yeah,
depicted in the show.
I feel like it's just it feels weird that he's experiencing it individually, and there's not a more like, okay, how is the rest of like Richmond or that respond to it? And I feel like that's something I wish it was like in terms of dramatics. I feel like that was,
Basically, it seems like our solutions to these are like, okay, so we have a nice little rallying moment, which, hey, they all fixed up the restaurant, isn't that nice? Opposed
or
to,
and
hey,
yeah.
oh, sorry. As opposed to like when we do like the attacking the fan thing, Roy Kent lays out this amazing, awesome speech to the press about the time when he was attacked by a fan, but it was absolutely justified.
No, where he was attacked by a player.
Oh, sorry, player. Sorry, I meant yeah.
No,
sorry,
The fan was the one that was attacked.
Right, no, I mean, well, wait, wasn't Roy Kent's story about like like he's so it was another player? He said I slept with your
Roy's story was about like how he made a joke about his teammate's baby, and then his teammate beat him up for it, only for Roy to learn later that the baby was lost.
Right. Well, my point is in conjunction with okay, fine. Well, then in conjunction with that, still like from that event, we are getting like this really great speech as opposed to like we have like a really excellent like episode-ending resolution to that versus like and we patch things up, we're gonna rebuild.
And there's kind of so much how in the second season it was like, oh, the team rallies with the whole tape thing, and it's like considering how like considering that they lost a big sponsor, just certain things where it's like characters just through like embracing their inner goodness triumph over like things that are really systemic, really like big that impact people like on an everyday basis. It felt as like, okay, I feel like the show just either wasn't capable or comfortable in dressing kind of like a more larger scale thing, like Sam's race being implicated or accounted for. So
it feels like more like they wrote themselves into a corner with that idea, and that it's a little too big for the story that they're telling. That makes any sense. I mean, doesn't it feel like it's like if we do address this in the way it really deserves or make it into like a season runner, it's like, well, we've deviated a lot of focus from where we need to go. But then it brings about the question: then why did we set it up in the first place? Then
or why didn't we just de-emphasize or took away other stories that weren't working, right? Like
exactly.
I think of like considering how much like story like the thing is for Keeley's story, there is actually potential for it to be something interesting. Because here's the thing. Keeley running a PR for would have been very fascinating because where does Keeley start off? She started off as a model.
That basically should just been its own series at this point.
Well, no, I mean, even if it was part of the storyline of this season, it would have been interesting because Keeley, when she started out as like a model and person that did commercials and all that stuff, and she had sort of the flashy life with her dating a young hot football player and all that stuff. And she remarked specifically how she was doing all that when she was 23 and she was doing that still like 30 plus. It would have been very interesting for her as a woman running her own PR firm to kind of face similar but different challenges in terms of running a business as a woman, and specifically running a business that's very media and image focused and like PR. And it would have been very interesting because like Ted Lasso has touched upon like celebrity culture and whatnot because football players are celebrities in themselves. It would have been very interesting to see Keeley seeing people or doing stuff that maybe would have made her feel not good, because here's the thing, PR is kind of trying to tidy up very complicated messes and all that stuff. How interesting would it have been if, say, Rupert came to Keeley's firm and tried and asked for her services? That would have been really interesting. Not to say that like she would have done it or whatever, but stuff
it could have created a conflict of interest, or he could have tried to blackmail her or something.
I don't even go that far, but just like PR is such a like the way that the show talks about PR is just kind of very flighty, just taking photos and all that. But when you think about like, at least for those of us that know or have a better understanding of PR, it's very like you gotta clear with the publicist, you gotta just manufacture and put out an image of yourself that maybe is not 100% authentic. It would have been interesting for Keeley to try to grapple like, okay, I'm always a person that's kind of about like being truthful and just being myself, and I've done well. But what if that's not enough? And that would have been interesting to grapple, especially if like she was doing PR work with some of the football players. Maybe Isaac Collin would have been interesting to have been like a PR to have been working with Keeley's PR firm because he's hiding this big secret, and then navigating how he comes out with that secret and how Keeley tries to, in her mind, run PR in a way that's more honest. That would have been so just stuff like that where she's like, it just feels like, oh, her running a PR firm is just like, this is just basically, it could have just been like, you just take that story out. It would have felt like, oh, this is just kind of like a generic, like, girl boss, runs her business sort of a deal in the big city. And it's like, just doesn't feel like Keeley, in terms of her as a character, what she does and what she represents, it just felt like though the writers lost what makes Keeley special and just had her do things, but not have things and be things. You get what I mean?
Right. Okay, let's talk about what really matters here. Let's talk about Zava.
Zava.
Yeah, we got to talk Deus Ex Zava. Let's talk about him.
I think Zava was definitely an interesting character, to say the least.
Here's what I love about Zava. I love
he was actually kind of like a down to earth guy in a way.
Yeah. He's married. He's faithful. It's
like the only woman I see clearly is my wife. Everyone else is just a blur. Huh. I'm like, when I saw that, I was like, damn, that's smooth.
Yeah.
Plus, he has an avocado farm.
He does. He's very proud of it.
It's like I love it. Like the ending is like he disappears for several episodes after he retires, but then he's like referenced like briefly in the final episode where it's like you expect us to share one avocado, and then it's a
huge avocado.
Yes, it's like the size of a soccer ball.
Exactly. So with Zava to me, when I look at the season, I really like how we utilize this, in which like, okay, so our guys start off at 20th place, and we need to move them up at least to we can get closer to the end goal of the season. So what's kind of the quickest, most efficient way we can do this? Well, we introduced Deus Ex Zava. So Zava is like this way, but it's less that. It's more like he's teasing a false solution, which I thought was really smart. Like we initially have Zava there thinking, our problems are solved. We got Zava. This is going to get us all the way to fun. We're going to have a much shorter season than we initially thought we were going to have. But it takes, so basically, we have a false solution that's really ultimately when it peters out and we get him out, we take him out of the equation at just the right time. It's going to take Ted and the team to get over the hump and get to the finish line, as it were. So it's some out of the box thinking to compensate for the lack of Zava.
Yeah, basically they were using Zava as a crutch.
Exactly, and I really like how the creation of Zava for that purpose, it seems. We just keep throwing around like this. Because that thing, he does come completely out of nowhere. Zava, and everyone's reacting. Even Roy Kent, like, Zava, breaks up the fun. I'm going to kill you, Todd. Zava, we're getting Zava.
It's like, and then it's like, do you think we should get Zava? Fuck yeah.
So,
it's crazy, but he wins games.
What's interesting is that for Zava, in terms of presence and the overall, like, how it feeds in the overall story arc, is that it kind of illustrates the point about to embody and to create and embody the Richmond way is basically a de-emphasis of the individual, less idealizing a person that comes in. You know what? I feel like for me, the way Zava's story played out, it's a subversive take on the idea of like, for every say like sports movie or whatever, there's like a coach that or a person that comes from the outside that comes in and changes the whole life of the team. What I think is really incisive and really good on the part of the show and the way Zava comes in and out is that Zava is a representation of the mentality. It's like, oh, if we just have the right, like just the miracle savior, just the person that comes in, the Messiah or whatever, and Zava has great hair and he looks kind of like the Jesus Christ figure, come in and save our lives, we're good to go. I think him leaving
if Jesus were athletic, he'd be Zava.
Yeah, when he left,
although Zava would be modest enough not to say that himself.
Yeah,
that's true.
No,
Zava kind of reminded me of like like a Fabio of the soccer world.
There you go.
no. But when he left, it helped to push the team into switching from an individual worship and idolizing to an an environment where they relied on themselves. And
Yeah.
total football, the way it's structured, the way it's done, it's literally every player has the ball. And the purpose is to keep the momentum going, pass it around. No one person has the ball for an extended period of time. Everyone gets to play, everyone gets to participate, and that's the Richmond way, where everyone is part of the game. And that's Ted's lesson to the team. That's the team's lesson to Richmond, and that's Richmond's lesson to Rebecca. And in light of her end of her heart.
So let me dovetail into the Rebecca side of things here, but let me circle the Ted here because obviously title character we should talk about him a little bit here. So we start this last season with Ted posing the question, "Why am I still here?" And ultimately Rebecca kind of answers that with to win the game. Essentially, it's kind of a very Jim Henson like philosophy here of like he wants to leave Richmond better than he found, even though he doesn't know he's leaving until the last episode. Fundamentally, that's in general, like, what am I doing here? It's basically, I want to leave this team better than when I found it.
And basically, which is emphasized at the end, where it says like, "It's not about me, it never was."
Exactly.
But you know what's crazy about that? Well, not crazy. What's actually cool about that is that Zava left because he wanted to focus on his family. And what's funny is that Zava came in to help the team. Zava didn't really come in to help the team. Zava came in to help Ted.
I mean, I don't know how intentionally, but yes, he ultimately did.
He did help Ted, and he basically came in because like Rebecca cornered him in the bathroom, basically.
Yeah, well, she basically spelled the whole. You do everything because it's easy. You got to do something because it's it's a challenge.
Well, I think it's more indirect in my view. I think it's just more about for Zava and Ted, they're both individuals that have came in and made such an impact in Richmond. But the overall like helpful impact is that
basically, if Ted were respected when he showed up, it would have been Zava.
Yeah, or just I think the point was being made is that I remember when like Healy asked Higgins like about leaving Rebecca, and then like Higgins saying is like a good teacher, is prepared or supportive, and a great mentor hopes or wants you to make your own way or something like that.
Yeah.
I think with Zava to a lesser extent, but Ted especially, he wants his team to be able to be the best in themselves without him being there. And that's part of in a kind of a funny way.
Ted is the father figure. It's like what any father wants,
which is very relevant in light of the last song of the show being "Father and Son" by Cat Stevens.
Yeah, as I pointed out in the beginning, that brought back memories of Guardians Volume 2.
Which is also which is also about fatherhood in a way.
Yeah, it's a great song.
And also, I mean, Ted this season, he's very much. We'll get into this momentarily, but he's definitely kind of stewing on the betrayal of Nate because he's internalizing it a lot. I think we internalize it rather well with the Legos and everything. He's.
Speaking of which, Nate's story seemed kind of rushed through.
Well, I don't know. We did I think we took a decent amount of time with that for the season. We'll put a pin in that. We'll get there. I'll talk about Rebecca, and then we'll get to Nate.
We need to talk about some other characters too. Like we still need to talk about Roy, Jamie, and Trent.
That's true. We got to balance them somehow, real quick. But as Rebecca, will go by real quick here. So Rebecca, the fortune teller thing with Rebecca is.
It was kind of funny at first, but then it's like, wait, is she gonna have Sam's kid? And then it's just like, okay, it's like it's not gonna be mentioned for several episodes, and then boom, Amsterdam guy at the end.
So that's the thing. So Rebecca, it feels like so she's looking for a happy ending versus revenge, which I think is like a good, in theory, that's a good idea. That's a good way to go with her story because she too is kind of questioning again the theme of the season, like what are you doing? What do you want here? Like okay, so she wants family, and she couldn't have that at Rupert. And what does she want? Like she's not doing it for revenge anymore. She's doing it to win. We have that hilarious scene in the hallway. The whole Ted, I believe in you. Again, all that's not a bad, and the whole fortune teller thing, the fact she's seeing all these signs and everything, that's not a bad runner. But the problem is, until the last 3 episodes, all that stuff that's just an excuse to just cut to her and see what's going on. What's going on with Rebecca? Where it's like, well, we're not really seeing all the important stuff. Like Rebecca doesn't really come into fruition until episode 10 when she's like, saving the whole, like she gets the idea like to give the league back to the fans. The whole Akufo League thing, the Akufo thing, and she has like great scene. She gets closure with Rupert in a sense, and she kind of again. Essentially, there's a lot of forgiveness in this season as well. So in a sense, she kind of forgives Rupert.
It's basically like a lot of the stuff that she was doing didn't have anything to do with the rest of the show.
Yeah, it's just until that point though, it's just a long. It's kind of like, okay, we're seeing this is all screen time we could have given otherwise.
It's interesting that both Keely and Rebecca being the most prominent female characters, like after the first season, their arcs tend to be very relationship focused. Which is not to say it's bad, but it is interesting that after the first season, the show doesn't make it an effort to have those characters be integrated with the football culture or integrated with like the efforts to like advance the team forward.
It's it's almost like this season that like they had to throw in a couple of scenes, like especially when it was like, when are we gonna win another game? Like to remind us, oh yeah, Rebecca owns the team.
Yeah, we did kind of go to that well a little often this season. The whole, when are we going to win?
No, but I saw it as like a reminder. It's like, oh yeah, Rebecca actually owns the team, and she's not just a random character in the show.
Yeah, like after the first season, she's not. You don't really get much of her involvement in the day-to-day business of it.
I mean, like I said, Rebecca was great in season 2. I love that. I'm still kind of. I don't mind the whole thing with Sam and everything, which I thought was kind of sweet, and I kind of wish I would have gotten more exploration here. But
season 1 has the juiciest material with the whole betrayal thing and how that resolves.
Like I said, I remember Dragon, when I first started watching it to prepare for our previous recap, I mentioned like, oh, it's kind of like a springtime for Hitler kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But then of course she grew to appreciate Ted, like, and when she even met his mom in this episode, like, thank you for creating like the nicest person I've ever met.
It was great.
And I love his mom's response to that too. It's like, oh no, it's like when he came out, he asked the doctor if he needed anything.
I know, yeah.
I love Dottie.
All right, so,
it's a shame she was introduced in the second to last episode.
Yeah,
but yeah, Rebecca, go on.
Well, I was actually going to transition to maybe Roy and Jamie or Trent Krim, whoever you want to go to.
Well, I think Trent Krim, the independent,
well, not anymore.
Well, I know, but it's basically an affectation at this point.
True.
It's the.
I mean, we have new Trent Krim. We have other guy.
New Trent. Better Trent.
No, it's the independent Trent Krim.
Yes. That is true, but I mean, like I said, it became an affectation after watching this first season, and I was like, it's kind of like I have to say like the great Roy Kent or Roy fucking Kent every time.
I gotta be honest, I hear the whole like the Trent Krim, the independent, and vice versa, but by the same time, he's one of the boys of this season. He's kind of earned like Trent Krim.
He even became an honorary Diamond Dog.
That's what I'm saying. So Trent Krim and how he was brilliantly incorporated as like the writer on the guy writing a book on the team. Mm-hmm. My favorite part of this season, hands down, my favorite scene in the season. There's a lot of competition. I know there's a lot of really good stuff. I think my favorite scene is that beautiful scene between Trent and Roy in the locker room when he takes him aside and he pulls out that he's had this beef with Trent Krim the whole time, and Ted says, "Okay, look, enough of this. Squash the beef." Okay,
it's like one of the few times that like Ted actually got really serious for a moment.
I know that Roy respected that, and he said, "Okay, it's like Krim in here."
It's like I don't know what your beef is because I'm gonna tell you to order off the vegan menu from now on.
It's a good line. It's a good line.
Or something. I don't think that's the exact line, but I know
there's something close to that.
He specifically mentioned like, "I'm gonna ask you to order off the vegan menu and put a stop to this." It's like. Anyway. It's like, and of course, like the whole thing, like when, like I don't know what what is your issue with me, Roy? And he pulls out a paper in his wallet, which is age, so he can tell.
Well, he doesn't say anything. Roy just calls him in there. He's really intimidated, and he just says like, "Hold this," and he pulls out the little clipping.
Which you can tell based on its like coloration. He's had it with him for a while, so you can definitely tell how long it's been.
He's had it with him since he was 17.
It's like he applied like it's like this. Wrecked me.
I think you see like the vulnerability on Roy Kent. There's the fact that this was like
I
him
think
back when he was all optimistic and happy and everything.
I was 17 years old.
I just love the honesty of Trent Krim in that scene where he just like says, "I was." He doesn't like try to defend it or anything. He says like, "Yep, I was young and trying to make a name for myself too."
He specifically mentioned I was trying to be edgy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's like, yeah, I mean, that just shows like that kind of journalism can have consequences. which I think kind of like Roy even later applied when he was doing his own conference.
Yeah. So yeah, it was so just an utterly just wonderfully delivered scene. I love how we have like these moments with Trent where again we're making him a diamond dog and he geeks out in the lasso way. He's like, what an effing dork! He's our dork though.
It's like you laughed. It's like you don't laugh much and just move it next year through the nose. And he did 43. It's like we don't. Nobody likes to laugh at police, Trent.
So the of course he's a very key figure in the Collins story. We learned that Trent Krim is gay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just I like how natural that scene was. He says like, your wife and kid, they love me. We're still very very strong, going really strong right now. And the it's so funny. Isaac, I feel, really came into fruition this season. It really was, even though we were kind of hurting on screen time for other characters. It's so weird how this works, where we have so many characters on the team when you think about it, and yet most. I mean, I don't want to say all of them because I'm sure there's some that are like more. We know there are some that are more recognizable than those. By that same token, though, we did flesh out the characters like Colin and Isaac this season. When they've been around, they've been giving them kind of lines and bits there, and Isaac was starting to come into prominence last season.
And with Isaac and Colin, it's like at least think like is he against gay people? But it's
initially
like
it would seem that way, and you're wondering, is he gay? Like, no, he's not gay. He's just very protective.
It's like he's more upset. It's like, why didn't you tell me?
So that's the thing. I love that Jamie has like this hilarious line during the whole Uncle's Day thing, where he's your best best friend. Like, no, my best friend's Isaac. F no.
It's like yeah, but I mean, speaking of which, and we're talking about.
It seems like Isaac's best friend is Colin. That's what it feels like watching this.
Yep, and speaking of best friends, I love how Isaac, not Isaac, but how Jamie taught Roy how to ride a bike.
Okay, we suck. So the Roy and Jamie stuff again is very well done. We have like them learn to ride a bike in Amsterdam, which is real nice. And I love how we're playing the "Raindrops Are Falling on My Head" song, which is from that Robert Redford movie, which I'm always blanking the name on.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Well, that's literally that's what that scene's from.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Yep.
I thought that was also in Spider-Man 2.
No, it is in Spider-Man. I know it's Spider-Man 2, but Spider-Man 2 is getting it.
Okay. No,
it was specifically written for Butch Cassidy.
Yeah, I always blank on I always remember it's a Robert Redford movie. I keep forgetting that it was literally Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Like written by Burt Bacharach, Hal David for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Seriously, Hal David's wonderful. I just want to get that in there. Everyone's always going to to Bacharach, and he's great, but still Hal David, man.
But yep. And it was used very well in Spider-Man 2. I'll
Perfectly.
Give you that.
It's one of the great scenes in that movie.
I'll give you that one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of like how a lot of those popular songs are used and are famous for movies that they weren't originally from. But it also depends on when the person watched them or anything like that. Or like
we got 2 Marvel songs in this season of Ted Lasso Kids. 2.
I mean, heck, season 2 had Let It Go.
True.
But
right.
Clearly my first.
I love why Roy has to ride the bike.
And of course, when I hear the song, I did immediately think of Spider-Man 2, and also when I heard Father and Son, obviously as I mentioned earlier, I did think of Guardians.
Yes. So I love that Roy learns how to ride a bike because he lost his grandfather, and I love how. I learned as I'm saying this, I'm disrespecting his memory, but I haven't learned to ride the bike.
Roy Kent continues to be like one of the best characters in the show.
So with that gag, it does speak to something big with Roy's arc this season. That Roy is ultimately he ends up getting help and he's seeing Dr. Fieldstone. It's interesting that Roy again.
It's just a shame that his relationship with Keeley ended up being turned into a joke.
That is true. That's that was unfortunate. But that's the thing. I like that. That was the other payoff that kind of bothered me too, because it feels like we might be going to a sense of okay, Keely's going to have a real Betty and Veronica choice here in terms of Well, they're both, they're both great. They both have gone to great strides to change themselves, but it feels like what we may have been hinting at, but we didn't do, was that
at that point, it just kind of seemed out of character for both of them to get drunkenly angry over Keeley.
Yeah, that felt a little like, okay, like that. You guys don't. Yeah, that part was like, oh, there's just some unnecessary drama that was added in my view.
I mean, it was like literally the last episode, like less than like a half hour or so before.
after the strides they made, it did feel very
like after like was in the last episode, like literally like less than an hour until the series ends. They're like, oh, now there's gonna be some relationship. There's gonna be some drama where they get drunk and fight over Keeley. It's just
it was a bad move.
Yeah, it wasn't really a cool move. And speaking of, I mean,
part of me felt that Roy Kent, his whole thing was going to be, because we kept that runner of the whole like, I broke up with her, and are like in shock, like, what? Why? I think ultimately the reason why he broke up with her, we don't really dwell on, is that perhaps it's called he needs that self-improvement, but he hasn't gotten it until the very end of the season. But we don't hit on that mark of like maybe he tries to get it going with Keeley again, but then he realizes, no, I can't do this until I get myself right. But then you would have run into then it might have run to issues just the way we diverted all the story and wasted all the Keeley story of like,
to add on to what you're saying, Blue Dragon, I think it would have. I really think it would have been just best for. I think it would have been cool for Roy and Jamie to not have either to met it up with Keeley, only in the sense that like, if Keeley wasn't a prominent part of the season, or if she was part of the season but more interconnected with the team, that them being separated doesn't mean that they still don't care for one another. And all three of them being in each other's lives, I think would have been a good ending to it, good ending of the season. But I think that whole like, oh, who is it, you or me? That was unnecessary. However, now when I'm just thinking out loud of this, is that considering who Danny Rojas of all people is in a throuple, as far as I could understand it.
Yeah, no, I think he's the ladies, man. But I guess you're right. Maybe it was like a throuple.
I mean, it would have been interesting kind of to see. Well, I don't know if it would. I don't think it would have been possible, but it felt to me that like the writers were kind of constrained on the cliches of resolving the love triangle thing in a typical sitcom or show, and I think the show could have gone another way of not being in trouble, or where maybe Roy and
they got shortchanged by it being the last season.
Like. I think for Roy and Jamie, it would have been really interesting if they just ended up with other people besides.
It would have been kind of interesting if after like seeing how Keeley was, they could have both been like, "Fuck Keeley."
Well, no. I mean,
I know. I'm just saying it would have been.
I really want to see Roy.
I'm just saying it would have been an interesting. It's like forget Keeley or something like that. But I mean, I'm saying it would have been an interesting development.
I would have really loved to have seen Roy end up with that school teacher.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of teased it a little bit.
Or Jamie to ended up with Roy's sister.
That would have been hilarious.
I mean,
it's like I'll gouge your eyes out. Remember, he says I'll cut your eyes out.
I would have loved. I would have loved to Jamie response like, "Well, I can still hear her."
It's like, or he would. Yeah, it would have been like, it's like, I don't want you to be my brother-in-law. Or Jamie's like, oh, look at me, bro. I'm your brother-in-law. I'm your brother-in-law now. It's like, and then it'd be like, oh, fuck.
No, just imagine Roy mugging Jamie as he's like pushing Phoebe on the swing back and forth.
That would have been fantastic.
How hilarious was it when? Oh God. How funny was it when Jamie had his breakdown and Roy was just like just beside himself the whole like, are you dying?
He's like, no, I'm not dying. It's like, I don't know.
I don't know.
It is kind of weird that like the guy's mental breakdowns are sometimes treated with humor, but some of the other ones weren't.
Of course. Yeah, also we have that great guy Will. Will's is always in the boot room every time like a big moment happens at Roy Kent. You really missed one this time, Will.
and then Will actually helped him with like the whole snowflake comment, like snowflake on a mountain.
Yep.
Like, you guys want to come? Don't push it.
Good.
And speaking of both Ted and Roy, what do you guys think of Richmond's new manager.
I kind of felt like, I mean, I don't know if it would have been too sudden or too soon. Like, I feel like Nate, it would have been more better or perfect in my mind for Nate to be the manager, because it would have reinforced like Ted's philosophy, how great people or people that can do excellence don't have to come from typical backgrounds.
I mean, I don't think. I mean, I think it was more Nate's choice. He probably didn't want to get back.
No, that's true. I think now I think.
I mean, I think it's kind of appropriate because Nate did do him dirty, and it's like he's starting back in Kitman, but he's a respected Kitman though, so I think it kind of it's.
I mean, remember they did use this technique for the.
That's the thing. I mean, it feels
goal.
like he's on his way. I feel like he probably won't be there for long. It's the impression. But by the very end, though, he is wearing a new outfit, so I think he was only temporarily a Kitman, and he's back to being a coach. That's what it looks like.
And Beard's still there too. So
that's. I think he did get promoted at the very end. I think he's just temporarily during the big game. He was a Kitman because they just brought him back.
And he still has Will as the other has his other Kitman.
Yeah. But plus, I mean, he was there, and they still used. I think they used some ideas and plays that he had. So he was still there, and then eventually he was rewarded for that. So it all worked out. Nate's fine. He'll be fine.
And he seems a lot happier now. So
that's the thing. So we should talk about the whole Ted and Nate things. This is the hype-worthy thing. Everyone was going into the season waiting to see how this was handled. So, Nate's between mentors this season. He went from Ted to Rupert, and I like that. If you look at it, he's really projecting a lot of the expectations that his father had for him onto Ted. And that's ultimately what broke down there in terms of when Ted seemingly kind of turned on him for Roy, in lieu of Roy, it really hurt his feelings. Mm-hmm. And kind of tore down the belief sign, which oh boy, I love the symbol of that sign and everything we do with it this season so much.
It's even when Ted's like, you know what, it is just a sign.
I just love when they initially freak out when Isaac's tapping oh god, I have chopping powers. He thinks he is.
He touches Jamie and he's.
What if it had worked? I'm sorry, brother, I didn't think that through. So just seriously, though, is the fact that they're all
that is more
superstition of a locker room with a very cursed league, and they're like, no, look, it's just a sign, all right? He just rips it in half.
I mean, it's very much in character for the team, though, considering one of the more prominent episodes of the first season is them that the locker room is cursed. So I think there is something interesting about a team that's very superstitious based. Maybe not letting go of their superstitions, but countering that with just some level of optimism, and that's not it's interesting how the show initially had the sign as a commandment or something to live by, towards you don't need the sign. Believe is not just a slogan to just tap on. Believe is just a way, the Richmond way.
Yeah, and it's the fourth thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Became the fourth thing. So. What are the four things, Dragon?
Yeah, so the four things are it's. Sorry, I'm trying to remember what the four things are. Oh yeah, okay, here it's conditioning, versatility, awareness, and then belief or believe.
And that's the Richmond way.
That's the Richmond way.
Not the Lasso way.
Not the Lasso way. We corrected that in the proofreading section.
I love it. Speaking of Trent Krim, the Independent's book. It was originally called The Lasso Way, which
Ted's only note was this is great. Just I changed the title. It wasn't about me.
And Beard was full of notes. He's just a few. Beard was just a few notes.
God.
And guess what? Diamond. Guess what? How many points is a diamond? 4 points. So it's yeah. It's a diamond in the rough.
Yeah, nice.
Or it's a rhombus.
Don't be that guy.
I know.
Don't be the rhombus guy.
Okay, I won't be the rhombus guy.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm not one to break up the diamond dogs.
There you go. I mean, we love Higgins. Don't hurt Higgins. If you look at Higgins crying in the corner, Jacob, just because you brought the rhombus.
No, I'm sorry, Higgins.
He's getting hot tea spilled on every which way this season. The least we can do is let him have the diamond dogs.
Yeah, let him have the diamond dog.
Not the love hounds. Don't bring those. The love hounds have a rhombus.
but Yeah, but either way, it's like I said, I love the and of course, like that's one of the things in the epilogue in which Trent financially publishes his book, and he did officially retitle it to The Richmond Way. I kind of wish Ted was on the cover, but oh well.
He's a humble
Well,
guy.
it's not about him.
I know,
Exactly.
I know, but he was part of the team.
True.
But like I said, I just love like the little detail. If he said like with very brief foreword by Roy Kent.
Right. So again, circle back to the name of it all. So again, I love the symbolism in the sign where we go from being ripped to the end. I love that. I love what Ted says when he says, like,
it's just a
it's
sign.
not there. Every time I look, I still see it.
Yeah.
When they're just that little private moment between them, and then we do the Kintsugi thing, which I thought was great. We saw the sign ripped up and kind of assembled by the team, and then Nate did his little arts and crafts thing, some glitter glue, and he literally made a Kintsugi out of the sign. So of course, the idea of Kintsugi is when you break something and you glue it together with like a gold. I think it's like gold paint, so that the glue is gold. The point being, you reassemble, it has like these gold cracks in it, and it's stronger. It's like every time when you break something, it heals. It's stronger than before. So great symbolism. I love that. I love everything we did with that sign there.
I love Roy having the book. Not Roy, the Jamie.
Yeah.
And especially in light of what the themes were of the book, The Beautiful, the Damned, it's very much evocative of Jamie's journey throughout this entire show.
Yeah. Yep. Ted Lasso knows how to recommend people books.
And he does. It's like when they pulled, some people pulled their signs out of the books, which is what Jamie did. Like other people pulled the sign out of their socks.
Yep.
which is probably gonna smell a bit when they put up the sign again.
Yeah, especially if it's Danny's.
Yep. Like Danny Rohith, he was still a treasure. He was a treasure this season.
Oh, for sure.
Like especially with him when he went up against Zorro.
You got it. That was look. That's funny, but it was a little like you really see. I didn't think we need to be afraid of Danny after that. I think it was just like he just went forward. We should have left it there. Like, he
it's so hilarious though. Like Zorro just like.
Terrified of Danny Rojas, the cuddly puppy of the pup, technically the cuddly puppy killer of the team.
It's like you have to admit though, crunching the Doritos was too far.
No, it's the best part.
I know it's hilarious.
Like pours it down on the floor. It's just like my.
It's like, don't get me wrong.
Well, I'm saying everything up until after the soccer ball.
I'm saying it was hilarious. Don't get me wrong, Rudy. It was hilarious, but that's like crunching the Doritos, man. That's just going too far. that's a dick move.
So,
speaking of moves, speaking of bad moves, I'll have one to bring up later on.
Yeah.
In regards to Zorro, I am so glad that he got to really be a great goalie because this is something that I don't see much people talk about. Zorro's doesn't really have much moments to be a great goalie or even a decent one throughout most of the games in the show. Like it's like, man, Zorro is just not catching the ball when he needs to. And I think in the last episode, the way he was playing, he was like, yep, that's a great way to not redeem, but like have his standout moment.
How great was Isaac's kick? We revealed that we had one of the things they were trying was that with the versatility things, they all switched kind of roles on the team to kind of play. Basically, they would be able to be better than just one thing. And Isaac, when he kicked, that saved the day. So again, Ted Lasso really won that game with that move when he we saw that Isaac has great potential with a kick if he can only aim it. So he aimed it right through the net. So much so it was so fast, and so powerful. It looked like it bounced off the thing.
Yeah, it went through the net.
It's amazing,
guys. Considering like Danny's kick of the ball killed
the Greyhound.
Greyhound killed the Greyhound.
I was like, which is what they kind of showed reminded us.
I know. I love that. Like the pressure was on. Like, oh, there's the dog.
Imagine like what happens to a dog when
the dog would have exploded.
Oh yeah.
Would have been hard. What episode of The Boys?
This episode, this is the show that makes us laugh about animals getting killed by soccer balls.
It's just the fact that
well, to be fair, it was actually Danny that did that. As you mentioned.
Danny Rojas is like the cuddliest, nicest person. It wouldn't hurt a fly, but he would kill a dog by accident with a soccer ball.
Hey, he, as Ted Lasso said himself, he's a raven-haired golden retriever.
Exactly, and the golden retriever accidentally mauled another dog with his foot.
It's like, and I just love his and I love his like whole thing with Zava. Like he was like the most into Zava. Like
the shoe gag.
It's like, and it's like Zava sent us stuff. It's like, no, I don't want anything. He sent us t-shirts. Can I have 2? It's like you can't. How can you stay mad at Rohith? And how can you stay mad at Zava? I mean, he's Zava.
True. Okay, so back to Nate thing. Sorry, so we don't get sidetracked too much here.
I know. Sorry.
It's interesting how it's always interesting when we have like a nice character do kind of mean or rude things or go on kind of a journey like the way Nate did. And I like how we're kind of seeing him in this interesting position where he went down a darker road that led to a lot of success, and he's at the top of his profession. Everyone's like respecting him and everything, but it's out of again, it came at a cost, and the cost that's still omnipresent there. And he's like, I love the Love Hounds thing, which he tries to do in the Diamond Dogs, and it's just like that empty, hollow feeling of like it's not the same. And he's thinking of Ted, and I love one of my favorite. We have some great moments where we kind of keep him and Ted at a distance, and it's really sad. And we're still seeing this bit of like, Ted's like has that Lego of Nate that is like separated, but by the encouragement of his son, he puts him next to him. And on the flip side, Nate is doing his little planning thing with the little figurines, and he kind of like kicks the soccer ball, knocks the mustachioed one off the table, and again, we're paralleling them until we get to that elevator scene, which is the almost apology before they're actually reunited. And Richard comes in the middle. Richard's like right there. It looks like the Emperor from Star Wars. You feel like he's wearing all black with kind of like the long coat.
You mean Rupert?
What did I say?
Richard.
Sorry, I meant Rupert. Yes, Rupert's like, Rupert's looking like the Emperor.
I was like, wait, who's
I was thinking Richmond. I think I mixed it with Rupert, so I think I ended up with Richard. So
Richmond.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I think somehow I combined in my head. I combined the two terms, so I got Richard somehow. The point being, Rupert. He just shows up like he's the Emperor from Star Wars, like interrupting like their potential catharsis here.
Well, I mean, like the Palpatine parallel gets further, where if you look at his office, the window is stylized the way the window looks in like Palpatine's throne room in Return of the Jedi.
Not to mention the long coat that looks like a cape.
That's what I mean, like that long.
They basically turned him into a cartoon villain this season.
I mean, it does look good with the cape.
I mean, don't get me wrong. He looks fabulous with the cape.
Yeah.
Honestly, Rick Rupert was like looking like General Zod.
Little bit.
Near before Rupert.
Yeah.
Just as an aside, I really appreciated how like the one misogynistic coach before Ted.
Yeah, from the very beginning, first.
Yeah,
episode,
was redeemed in the end by him not agreeing to Rupert's demands to like really.
To basically sweep the leg, Johnny, with
yeah. I love it. It's like Mannion's gone nuts in Craddock's.
Yeah, which by the way pays off the whole thing. He's wearing the shorts in the beginning, and I think Rebecca called that out, so we paid off everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, I love how Jay kind of redeemed Nate. I like how she was key in that, like that cafe, and Jay really kind of brought him down to earth, and everything was like really good for him.
And it was, and Jay got interested in Nate because Nate was just really passionate about A Taste of Athens, and it's like, it showed that even if Nate wanted to have all the fame and attention, deep down he's just a regular guy.
Yeah.
And that even is further reemphasized when he has this conversation with his dad.
Yeah, and that was really nice too. Is given this show's majority of which is kind of a story of fathers and sons and everything, it felt really important that we have that Nate got that scene with his father, which is I think a down to earth thing a lot of people have with their fathers, and which is sort of thing of like you'll never get the full on apology, and if you do, it's usually too late. But it's kind of the whole forgiveness theme of the season. Like Jamie. What got him out of his head was like he was essentially forgave his father, which led to the whole thank you, F you, the F you, thank you idea, which Ted used for his mother.
Yeah, I mean, consider what Higgins said in I think the first or second season, where it's like, I love him. Like in regards to his dad, he says, "I love him for who he was and forgive him for who he wasn't."
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I gotta tell you, man, Higgins just never fails in this show. He was so good, and I love it. They have the jazz club and everything. He's so awesome.
Oh yeah, Leslie Higgins. He is great. He's like the unsung member of the Diamond Dogs.
I love that he like told like when Roy officially became a Diamond Dog, which is like a huge moment we saved for the last episode. Higgins just dropped the mic, and Roy was they were all like pointing to Higgins. Oh yeah, Higgins, he just summed it up perfect. Gave Roy exactly the advice he needed. Yeah.
I mean Higgins was like an unsung hero throughout this entire show.
He is.
I mean, apparently he redeemed himself from like helping Rupert, and now he's like one of the boys.
Speaking of redemption,
to quote Jamie, Leslie Higgins is basically a tall Yoda.
Yeah, that's true. So, speaking of redemption, we had one of the other big standout scenes of the season was Coach Beard's story. We got to talk about the Coach Beard scene.
It's like, him and his a very strange relationship with Jane.
Well, yes, and we had this moment there where he, Ted, we had this video that again caused everyone. Ted was like, "No, don't show the team this video," because he didn't say what was going to happen, but we saw, when they showed this video, they got all riled up and they got violent. To quote the fans, they're playing like Italians.
Like, to be fair,
what?
No, I was saying Mamma Mia with the Italian thing.
Right.
Mamma Mia.
So yeah, they.
I got the Mario movie the other day.
Oh, cool. I might ask you something later about that. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, the thing is, we have that moment there, and then Ted watched the rest of the video, and we revealed to Coach Beard, like, Nate was like, we kind of saw, despite him doing something really bad, he was deep down still like the Nate we all knew and loved, but he's kind of hiding that whole time. And we have, I gotta be honest, I would argue, at least for me, maybe probably just for me, I think we had one of the most profound moments, or at least profound nuggets of wisdom from Ted Lasso I've ever heard, where he said, essentially, Coach Beard, he said, I hope that the moral of I hope that we're not judged by our weakest actions, that we're judged by what we do with our second chances. Something to that effect. I thought that was like a really great, profound line that he had, and that really inspired Beard to go to Nate and tell him how he met Ted and what happened there.
I mean, it's like, I hope either all of us or none of us are judged that way.
There you go. Yeah, that's the thing. It was just a really great and profound line. I think we all can.
And then Coach Beard like revealed that like he knew Ted when they played the sport, but at that point he wasn't very close to Ted until he got in trouble.
Yeah, and a whole like he stole a loaf of meth.
Yep, kind of a little Breaking Bad there.
A little bit, and then, but yeah, so Ted, he could have let him go, sent him up the river after he stole his car, but no, he gave him a second chance and convinced the cops. No, I let him borrow it. Yeah,
it's like, and that basically put Coach Beard on the path to where he is now.
Yeah, so it was.
Just to be fair, that also does explain a lot of his tendencies.
It does. So yeah, all that's just.
And the biggest thing is, we learned Coach Beard's name.
What is that name, Jacob?
Willis.
Yeah.
Which was actually told to us because I think in season 2, episode 1, like Beard says something and then Ted's like, "What you talking about, Willis?" And people think that was a reference to Different Strokes, but Ted was just talking about Willis.
It's funny.
It was actually his name the whole time.
Yeah.
It was a double. It was revealed to be basically a double entendre.
That man gave me a second chance and gave me a job and he gave me a life. You have to do life part on your own, but I'm going to give you. He gave Nate the same opportunity.
And that also explains. It also kind of explains why he's so like, despite the like the quibbles they have sometimes, why he's so fiercely dedicated to Ted.
I know, all that was just wonderful, and that was a great reveal that they would say for the penultimate episode too. That was a really good choice.
Plus it also does like, sure, Nate's kind of like forgiveness, especially with the other teammates, was kind of rushed. It actually does explain why he would.
I think it's rushed only because we time jumped him leaving Rupert. Had we not done that, I think we would have serviced the Nate story well.
And again, that is something major that happened off screen that should have happened on screen.
But again, that's the thing. Aside from that one time skip, I think everything else with Nate was pretty nicely kind of.
And like I said, as I was trying to say, it's like it's that scene with Coach Beard that like it's like, yeah, I can totally see Nate rejoining Ted after hearing that story.
Yeah, it's a very lovely apology that they have that they share too with the empty sign and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. All right.
And it was nice to see him actually be like, he was actually kind of happy to just be a kitman again.
Exactly. Yeah. Humble beginnings.
It's like, it's nice to have you back, Ted. That's nice to be back, Keely.
Right, so we don't really have time to dwell on a whole lot of this. So I'm just going to rapid fire through a few of these. So
I think the next thing is like, what about Dr. Jake?
Yeah, I was getting that. So
it's like we reveal that she's now with the marriage counselor that she and Ted went to.
It's so messed up. Now here's the thing.
I was like, that's the dick move I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, that's a really messed up idea there, but it's.
I mean, as I've read online, it's like it's actually highly unethical.
No, in the subreddit, people were talking about it's weird that it happened, and neither Ted, whether by himself or even the two psychologists that we know of, being Dr. Sharon or Sassy, don't encourage or just themselves report Dr. Jacob, because that's an ethics violation. Like that's a
even if it's like after I know what you can read
because he started out as Michelle's therapist and then transitioned to be the marriage therapist to both Michelle and Ted, and then in them divorcing and him, it is a complete violation and breaching of boundaries, because the thing is the concern is in Dr. Jacob having this professional patient, therapist relationship, him having personal or information that maybe other people wouldn't be privy to. There's concerns about Dr. Jacob manipulating Michelle.
Oh, okay. I see.
Whether it was him and her, or even the fact that he was the marriage therapist for Michelle and Ted. Like, we were not
telling. I want to ask you something, Rohith.
Sure.
When you saw those text messages that Ted was going through, did you read it as it's already a highly unethical situation? When you saw those text messages, you saw like, "Hey, you're making really good progress," and all the other messages Dr. Jacob sent were
your next appointment.
Yeah, your next appointment. So you think at that point that was like him just saying that and then just getting really distant, like basically not giving his all to save the marriage because he wanted to date Michelle.
I mean, at the very least,
that way, or do you think
at the very least, it's like it gives out the impropriety, and that is something that therapists, at least in the U.S., if not the Western world, there is a strong disencouragement of doing things like that, because as therapists, you are privy to sensitive and vulnerable information and knowledge of people who come to you and rely upon your trust and confidentiality to not manipulate that to your benefit.
Yeah, I don't see like a marriage counselor because I'm not married or anything, but I do actually see like a therapist or like the therapist and like a psychiatrist doctor. Like it's out of the same thing and everything. But like even he said like I am friendly towards you and I know everything and we talk about everything, but I am not your friend. It's like basically he says like he basically straight up told us like he's still a nice guy and everything and he's friendly to us and helps.
He's drawing the lines. He's drawing the lines so
like,
what we're not crossing there.
I mean, and he's basically told us like he's not we're not his personal friends. Like
no.
That's the thing. He knows where to draw the line. Like we look up to him and we're friendly with him, but.
And in light of this, it's like no wonder why I feel like Ted is kind of invalidated to a certain extent of distrusting therapists. If the fact that his own therapist just stole his wife essentially when he did
it. It was a horrible way in which he found out too. Like his son was given an infinity gauntlet by the new man who was Dr. Jake.
Combined with what happened with his dad, and then now learning that his wife is with their marriage counselor, it's like, yeah, I could see that.
And Ted has freaking panic attacks.
And nobody even told Ted that's like, oh hey, by the way, I'm dating our marriage counselor.
So let me ask you guys this. Okay, we're talking about what happened. Like, how do we? Like, do you feel? Here's the thing. I feel the whole Paris thing was like an example of after. Okay, so let me round about. Let me try to connect some dots here. So Amsterdam, in my experience, from what I've read cursory online, Rohit's probably going to be far more versed in like what the reaction was. It feels like Amsterdam was the big deal breaker for this season. It was either makes or breaks the season in terms of people. I like the Amsterdam episode, where this was the beginning of like the major disruption flow in the narrative, which I kind of see the latter on in terms of after Amsterdam. Amsterdam's kind of a meandering episode already.
I mean, I did like moments in the Amsterdam episode.
Exactly, we love
like
stuff in Amsterdam, yes,
and also the Magic Land shout out.
Sure.
Which did have Corey Burton doing the voice.
I know, I love that. I was geeking out. Oh my god, that's Corey Burton!
And when I was like, wait, was it actually Corey Burton? Then I saw the grid. It's like, it's Corey Burton.
It's like, I know that voice. That's Corey Burton. They got him.
Yep, that's my guy, Corey Burton.
Of course, to reveal the whole total football idea. And the whole, I really wish Tiki watched Ted Lasso because we could have gotten the whole triangle thing there because he loves the whole triangle running gag. So it's the fact that Corey Burton lays out a whole thing on the history of the triangle is brilliant.
Triangles!
I really appreciated that Ted wasn't actually tripping on drugs.
I know that. Well, I'm not sure how I feel about that one, but it's kind of interesting.
It's basically like a placebo effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love like the phony American restaurant he goes to.
Here's the question. Here's the real question. Okay.
Yeah.
While he was not tripping on the tea, do you think, as he was saying, it's a really good argument, do you think it was more of like a withdrawal thing from the American barbecue sauce where he tasted it and it kind of gave him like big creative, like literally creative juices flowing?
I mean, that could be it. I mean, did you notice his Wi-Fi password?
Yeah.
His Wi-Fi password when he texted his mom was like capital BBQS @USC. His password was literally his Wi-Fi password was literally barbecue sauce.
And he yells out barbecue sauce when he's about to hit bullseye or make like a big win.
It's like barbecue. So it seems like barbecue sauce is like the power is like the power up for Ted Lasso.
So that's the thing. Maybe it was less that more was literally the barbecue. It was the best barbecue sauce that they had, and it was like a taste of home.
I love how it was even like, why'd you bring me this one? Because it's the best one.
Or I mean, I think what's something that's interesting is that like for Ted, the thing this season, he's drinking less, and I think for that episode, with regards to him being like imagining and seeing the triangle thing. It could one think about like if Ted's just not drinking, just drown his sorrows, if he's just kind of letting his mind wander, he comes up with these creative solutions. Because I think beforehand, like the show, like very much like displays Ted's crutch being his like whiskey, and thinking that particular aspect, the fact that he's going to try tea, he didn't have like his alcohol or whatever. And he was just going out with his thoughts. The fact that he came to like thinking.
It's a big moment because Ted Lasso hates tea. So it was like the first time we've seen him drink tea in this whole show.
Yeah, that's the only time he drinks tea.
Yeah,
like he never really learned to. He never even said like. It would have been kind of interesting if like one of the last things he said to me was like, I finally learned to like tea.
Oh no! Yeah, he says,
it's like I still hate the tea,
Well, he did after that. When he did say the whole thing, as long as that tree piss doesn't get in my mouth, it's. I
mean, I also kind of wish that like at their parting, they should have mentioned like, I'm gonna miss your biscuits.
You're right, Jake. They should have got that in there.
Like, I'm gonna miss those biscuits, Ted.
Yeah, that's a shame we didn't pay off the goodbye to the biscuits.
It would have been cool if like Rebecca was able to make the biscuits herself with like Nora.
Yeah.
If Ted gave her a recipe, that's what they should have. Like, here you go.
Because remember, like it drove her mad in the first season. Like, I can't find this bakery that has the recipe. And then when Ted, like, dang it, another recipe down. And she was like, wait, you made these? That was such a good Ted and Rebecca moment.
Also, what do y'all think about Rebecca's interactions with the Dutchman?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So the Rebecca plotline again was a little. Getting there was a little odd with the Amsterdam thing in terms of how these two meet, but I mean, ultimately, I like the idea. Like, she meets she does not have we don't give the easy fix of like miraculously she can have kids all of a sudden, but by the same token, that she learns that it's about kind of she kind of has an unconventional family on her own terms, which is kind of what she's been doing the whole time with Richmond in terms of learning like the whole fans kind of own the team, and the team is kind of the family to a degree, kind of like Ted has forged that with the team themselves. Yeah,
and May has a bunch of the shares.
Yeah, maybe it's a whole bunch of the shares.
I
Yeah.
love it's like football matriarch, and Ted's like, well, it's better than being called soccer mom.
I mean, yeah, he has a point.
So that's the thing. Because of that, it feels like it was a good way of giving her a happy ending in a natural way.
And the thing is, like, and of course, we finally get to see Amsterdam Man's daughter.
Yeah.
Also, someone made this point in the subreddit. It's like, oh, like in light of the Dutchman being pilot, oh, like literally Rebecca is spooning or in love with the Flying Dutchman.
Nice.
Yeah, because he's a pilot, so yeah.
He's a Flying Dutchman.
I like it.
And he owns a boat too.
Yep.
Oh my god!
And remember, the Flying Dutchman is a boat.
Now, if only we saw him wearing one.
Well, technically, it's a ship.
Now, if only we saw him wearing one sock when he's eating that dinner,
or having an eye patch, or even just like
or like he had an interaction with an octopus. Because the Davy Jones and everything.
Okay. So.
But yeah, it's like he even owns a boat. The boat doesn't have a name, but he's a Flying Dutchman. That is great.
Right. So the point being, Amsterdam is when we start to get certain momentum drops, and then, for example, like the team meandering, like, what are we gonna do? And it's like them wasting all that time. And then we have a pillow fight, which is fun. So we're kind of.
I mean, the whole subplot felt kind of unnecessary.
This is what I'm saying. That we're starting to get into the unnecessary subplots.
I mean, they've gone to previous places before and haven't had issues either splitting up as a team or finding something to do. But here it's like they're suddenly in Amsterdam, and it's just like they don't know what to do.
Yeah. So we do this, and then after this we get to the whole is Dr. Jabe going to propose in Paris now? Is Ted going to feel that's kind of a waste of an episode until we get to the Hey Jude song. That's kind of what that feels like. It feels like So we're not even confirming what's going to happen. Even so, how does it really affect Ted?
And the fact that like Dr. Jacob seems to unsuccessfully not propose or did propose and Michelle rejected. It's like, man, I kind of feel like it's like that's the thing. It's like that and Shandy. It's like the season has like, oh, this could be a big thing and this could negatively impact.
We don't have enough time to pay these off, which feels like it's why we're not doing that. So then it's a retroactive question: why are we doing it in the first place?
I guess that they should have either like gotten more episodes and like reduced the running time of each one, because like I said, each episode like. I mean, obviously, shows can work well with shorter or longer episodes. Like, I think this show kind of worked better when it had the shorter episodes.
Yeah, because it forced them to be economic with their storytelling, and I think with the longer episodes, they really kind of.
I mean, and don't get me wrong, long episodes can work. It's just that this show doesn't really formatted for like, and didn't think. There's a difference between being long and being long and economical and just being long and just spinning your wheels. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right. It's like it's just like this show didn't feel like it worked on like an hour and 10-minute episode run times.
What do you guys think about the origin of Ted Lasso's mustache? I love that we gave it an origin story. It was pretty fun.
It's like basically like the 5 different beards and different beard types from where was it?
No, well, four different beard types from the Blue Collar Comedy Tour.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And then like Bill Engvall, Larry the Cable Guy, and
then White,
and
Jeff Fox,
and then he did something.
He went with Bill Engvall, and he had Larry the Cable Guy, and he had the goatee, and it was just.
And then Coach Beard took him to the side and was just like, "That ain't working, Ted."
on his wedding day, right before he walked down the aisle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then gave him basically that prompted him to give him the Jeff Foxworthy mustache.
So also, when you think about that too, it's the fact that the mustache is linked to Ted's marriage, which, given the state of it in this show, it's a rather interesting choice.
Yeah, we actually see him shaving and getting his mustache in the first episode. Like, because remember, he had a 5 o'clock shadow in the first episode.
Yeah,
and then he trimmed it up when he went to work.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting to me, in just going back to when Beard talks to Nate about their backgrounds, is that both Ted was a backup kicker and Beard was a backup punter in college, and it's considering where they ended up, it's kind of like a very like Cinderella or like underdog sports story for these two.
It's like neither one of them actually got to play on their team.
Yeah, they were bench warmers, and they went from being bench warmers to like leading a D2 team to like a championship to then going all the way to a different sport, going to relegation, getting out of relegation, and being number 2 behind Manchester City. Like that's like a pretty miraculous, you know.
I mean, Man United is like the most famous football / soccer team in the world for a reason.
Yeah, Pep, and it was really cool to see Ted and Beer like geeking out over like Ted shaking Pep's hand. Also, Blue Dragon, I think you and I were both right with how we imagined the season ended. Remember, because I said like, oh, I think they're gonna lose, but they also earned respect of like Richmond and all that. So like, they did win the match against West Ham, but they did ultimately not win the whole thing.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe if they would have had that slump, they would have in the middle. They would have come out on top.
Yep.
Which is a shame, because they were.
No, it is, but you know what? It feels.
It feels right though.
Yeah, it feels right because again, Ted Lasso did get him all. He got him all the way back. He took him all the way, and there was a victory there, and it was far better than they thought. And again, Rebecca got what she wanted ultimately, but not for the wrong reasons.
And then, of course, she was basically begging him to stay.
Yeah. So
like, is it possible that this is your family too? And when she did big attempts.
She was so ambivalent about Ted at the start. Now she's come to like, she loves him dearly.
Yeah.
Oh, we should talk about the fake out.
Oh yeah.
I was initially so mad at the fake out. I was like, no, you guys are not doing this last episode. And the other people come, I was like, oh, okay.
In the first season, did you think potentially they were going to go the direction of?
I mean, heck, even the second season had like
the fake out with the text thing, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
With the dating site, it's like okay, is he actually Rebecca's mystery man?
Yeah, and we've kind of teased that up, so it feels kind of perfect that we've, in some sense, it feels weird to shoehorn in like the top of the last episode, but I guess it feels like, well, okay, let's just get this one running gag out of the way, and then we'll
it's like, thank you for letting us crash you while our house had a gas leak.
Was Beard in his thong.
It's like, and then like, I'm gonna go start with the guest rooms. No,
those ropes are supposed to be dirty.
It's like they're dirty for a reason.
God.
It's like, do we even want to know?
No, we don't want to know.
It's like,
God,
you're not even curious.
No.
Okay,
imagine
me neither.
Imagine if Beard and Jay, whatever stuff they do, their foreplay is just yelling at chess moves, and that just changes positions. If you know what I mean.
God, of course. It doesn't end until someone says checkmate.
Oh, God.
Gives new meaning to losing your rook or rook.
Rook, yeah.
You're losing your pawn, sacrificing, taking.
Right. Well, there's a dirtier term I could use, but I'm not going to do that. It's just, for another chess piece.
I don't understand it myself, but you can explain it after we go off air.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so Rupert, again, we kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier. Rupert's fate was very, Rupert's kind of losing his cool there, and he went down and shoved the former coaches that tell him to sweep the leg, and everything's going completely crazy. Let's see. So again, in a way, here's the big question: the fan theory people have been kind of throwing out there. Sorry, real quick before we do, we also mentioned the last movie night. We did the You've Got Mail scene played as the scene when it's played to Wizard of Wizard of Oz song Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
I still think Sleepless in Seattle is a superior film.
I love it's such a funny line. Oh God, I love it. I love even Roy Kent's crying at this moment. Also, I love during the credits, like, oh, that was Dave Chappelle. It's just really funny.
It's like, yeah. It's like even Roy was crying, even Jamie was crying.
So, by the way, that was like the one moment we did actually sincerely acknowledge the whole Sam and Rebecca thing. When the father met Rebecca, said, "Oh yeah, I've heard a whole lot about you," and we kind of left it like, "Oh." And then here is like, like Sam's looking wistfully at her and says, "I really wanted it to be you." So that's like as close as we get to okay, they had their, they kind of had their motive, like maybe, but it's not in the cards. So yeah, so then we end things on the plane. A lot of people have wondered, is Ted imagining what happens? Like, is it like what Ted
The
hopes for?
director confirmed the events that happened are real.
Okay, thank goodness, because I was hoping they were real too. It was a really nice way to end.
Yeah, it wasn't a dream. It was edited kind of weirdly to make it look like he woke up after the events happened. But
especially with Beard and Jane's wedding having that like weird CGI background.
It's like you could tell that was just screen. Like the perspective didn't match at all.
It was kind of like a "we don't care" sort of thing. Like, okay, it's like the last shot of a show. We don't need to polish the effects. Just throw it in there.
I mean, the thing is, like the last scene of a shot, especially like a wedding, you'd think that's where they would put some effects to put some effort into it.
That's true.
Honestly, I kind of wish, like, considering their whole bonding over chess, it would have been cool if their wedding was like chess themed. They're like on a chessboard or whatever.
Like, and of course, Danny Rojas is there with his two girlfriends.
Yep, and they're all teams in tears and happy tears.
Yep, everybody's happy. Coach Beard.
The fact that Coach Beard asked permission to stay behind, that was really nice.
He didn't want to abandon Ted, but Ted gave him permission, and then faked an illness to get out of the plane.
So here's something really cool. I love that when you look at the end of the show, it goes complete. It's not most original because most really good finales do something akin to this, but it's really nice that we go full circle with a few events that happened the very first few minutes of the first episode, which
the big one here being, are we nuts for doing this?
Yeah, you have Ted and Beard on the plane, for example. You have the Ussy guy showing up. We had him
basically that shows like when Ted arrives, like get out of here, you wanker, and now it's just like oh, legend man.
Well, no, actually, no. He was saying he wasn't the wanker guy.
But I'm just saying it's just like his overall reception upon arriving in London is like, get out of here, you wanker.
True.
And now his reception is like, you're a legend, man.
I love that guy was like, in the first episode, he was saying like, if you, you must be crazy for doing this. Let me get an Ussy. So it was kind of like a little before and after photo of like, this is before Ted went on this journey, and at the very end, like, let's get another Ussy. You're a legend, man. It's nice. And also Ted, when they set Ted Lasso, who's took a team like Division I or whatever, he took this team all the way to the American football team. He was doing the running man, and of course, when they won their big game, he also did the running man. Mm-hmm. It's what Ted does when they have a major victory.
I'll never know how to react when I see a man doing the running man in front of me.
Yeah, great. So that's
I still love the fact that they brought in actual soccer announcers for this show.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. It's like people wondered why there's they don't call it soccer. Like there actually is a show over there called Soccer Sunday. It's actually called. I mean, considering they invented the term, but the thing is, the show is literally called in Japan. Not in Japan, in England, Soccer Saturday. That's an actual show in Japan. I keep saying in England. They love alliteration over there.
I'd like to think the So Long Farewell little goodbye sequence, which is beautifully choreographed and performed and everything. I love to think that. I think the implication is that Roy Kent, that was his idea, and that was his swan song to the guys.
It's perfect.
Because who else could orchestrate that? Let's be honest.
And it's that was perfect. and then the entire crowd went. And actually, they invited the crowd to watch their practices this season.
Yeah, I love that they were.
And the crowd went nuts.
I love they went nuts. You get a sense more than they would have been for the actual game.
No,
it's it's they're celebrating Ted.
Yeah,
but that's another thing that we should have seen on screen. Their reaction to the news of him leaving.
I mean, yes, Jacob, but then there's a degree of like how much of the same reaction can you really take?
Yeah, I think.
I know, but it's just like another thing. Like all of like the major stuff that should have happened on screen happened off screen.
I don't know. I think that's the one thing where I'm okay with it being.
It's the one exception, Jake, but everything else, you're right.
I know it's like it's a lower example than the others, but
yeah.
But you get where I'm coming from.
Sure, yeah, I get it. So the pattern goes on. Yeah,
I mean, the musical number was corny, but I mean, this entire show is corny, so it fits right in.
In all the right ways.
I mean, considering they like went through all the effort, I think last season to do an NSYNC routine, I think like them doing the whole Sound of Music thing was very much in line with
I mean, and to be fair, they did mention Sound of Music earlier when they're talking about favorite
Julie Andrews performances and the fact that Roy Kent has it bad for Julie Andrews.
It's like basically he fancied Julie Andrews for a long time.
I love that Trent Krim he went for the Princess Diaries.
It's like Princess Diaries. They were like, yeah. I love how they were all like, yeah. And of course, like you have the Mary Poppins, the Maria.
I really hope someone showed Julie Andrews a clip of that scene. I really do.
It's like I hope she, or at least hopefully she would understand the context.
Even out of context, I think it's pretty fun. I think she'd like it.
It's like, and of course, Trent Krim going for the more unconventional choice. Queen of Genovia.
What's interesting about who was the one that said Mary Poppins was their favorite Julie Andrews movie?
That was Ted. Ted and it was Ted and some.
Didn't Beard say that, or did Beard say something else?
No, Beard said something else. It was Ted and someone else had Mary Poppins. Was it Higgins?
I think it was.
No, it wasn't Higgins. No, it wasn't Higgins. It was Ted and.
Nate wasn't there yet. So
I know Nate wasn't there yet, but I could have sworn there was like Ted and someone else had Mary Poppins. Like he seconded.
Who all was there? I mean, it would have been Ted, Beard, Higgins, and Roy.
Well, Trent. Okay, let's see.
And Trent.
That's the thing. So we know what Trent. Okay, let's see the
Trent was Princess Diaries. Ted was Mary Poppins.
Yeah, Ted was Mary Poppins. Higgins was Eliza Doolittle.
So Roy Kent is Maria. Coach Beard was Eliza Doolittle. And then Ted Lasso.
Wait, are you sure Beard was Doolittle and that wasn't? That wasn't...
Yeah, no. I'm looking at the exact quote. It's like.
Oh, okay. What was it?
Yeah, Coach. So it's basically Roy Kent is Maria.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Beard is Eliza Doolittle.
Okay.
Higgins is Mary Poppins, and Ted Lasso agrees with them on that.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
Yeah,
I think I found it. I found actually an IMDb page with that quote.
Yeah, that's the one I'm.
Yeah, that's what he's looking at right now.
Oh,
yeah. He's got it. Yeah.
Maria, Eliza, Mary Poppins. Higgins did say Poppins.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then we got it.
But what I was going to say is, I think if it's, I remember correctly, I think like Mary Poppins is like Jason Sudeikis' real life favorite Julie Andrews character for Julie Andrews movie, and considering like Mary Poppins' arc and like what Mary Poppins is as a presence, like she comes into this like family that's distance and like turns their lives around and then leaves at the end, and like.
I think that's an intentional choice. I think they
and considering Jacob is on the Guardians 2 brain.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that is true. Is he cool?
Is he cool?
Hell yeah, he's cool.
Mary Poppins, y'all.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so then of course we see a little glimpse of everyone. We've repaired the sign, Kinsuki style. Roy is seeking help. Everything's the Beard gets married. It all works out. His friends are happy, and now he's coaching soccer on the American side of things. He's coaching football on the American side of things, but not that football.
He is coaching kid soccer, little soccer. Yeah. And he's basically like in Roy's position beginning of season 2.
Yeah, that's great. And that's where we leave Ted Lasso. He's still coaching. He's still coaching football.
Yeah, in a different way.
Yep, in a different way.
The question.
He's learned so much.
What happened with Dr. Jake, though? That's the question.
Yeah, I think the less Dr. Jake, the better.
I mean, that'd be true. I mean, I hate to share the same name as the guy.
I think it would. I think I liked. A part of me would like to think Ted reported him to the ethics board, but
Or I mean, considering how like I think someone made the comment that like throughout the match, like
he was very disinterested.
yeah, and also I think he was just like further away or sitting further away from like Michelle and Henry, so it could probably just like Dr. Jacob just grow bored and disinterested, just left.
Do you think there's a reconciliation with Ted now that he's kind of faced a lot of his
Reconciliation as in Ted and
Michelle getting back?
I don't think so because
it would basically undo the arc, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean beyond that, also in light of like Ted, and also in light of Jason Sudeikis' real life stuff, I don't know if I feel like he wouldn't feel right to write a character who bears some similarity to his real life and then have that kind of magical ending, because the thing is that like for Ted Lasso as a character, his thing is not about like, oh, life just magically turns better, but
Right.
just more about your perspective in life is more optimistic and life becomes better in of itself because you have a positive attitude.
And I mean, it's left open to interpretation as well.
I think where I think likely Ted and Michelle are a place in which Ted is probably not as the optimist, like happy-go-lucky caricature that Michelle got frustrated with. I mean, he's still Ted, he's still optimistic, but it's probably a more measured optimism. And I think Michelle probably, after some distance, misses having that in her life, but not necessarily have Ted as a romantic partner, but just have Ted as just like a loving and supporting co-parent.
And it's a good way to look at it. And like I said, it does leave it open to interpretation. Maybe things will work out, or maybe they'll just stay co-parents and friends for the time being, which is a good, healthy way to end the series. And of course, like it almost kind of ends with like just Ted giving like a knowing look at the camera, right?
Yep.
I mean, like for a moment, this movie just sounds like he's about to go off, about to have another panic attack again. But no, everything's just fine. He's just basically just giving the camera a look and saying goodbye to giving us all a solemn goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, that's all she wrote, literally.
Yep.
I kind of, so just as a brief thing, I kind of wish Dr. Sharon was a bit of a prominent focus back. I think the parts where she showed up was kind of like I wanted more of her, considering how much of a presence she was in the second season.
It felt very much as suffering from the whole we've kind of diverted the wrong screen time around this season.
I mean, in all honesty, I would have liked to see like less screen time from Keeley's subplot into this one.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's like we kind of put all the Keeley time in there. When
I mean, if only. I mean, it would have been as bad as if Keeley. I mean, we barely even talked about Jack throughout this whole thing.
But that's what I'm. I kind of mentioned that with the Keeley thing is the fact that we have this relationship with Jack, which ultimately doesn't go anywhere, and she basically leaves her because like you filmed a sex tape and just leaves her. It's essentially what happens.
And it's like it doesn't feel like Keeley grows or has changed as a person through her time running the PR firm.
Yeah, I mean she's kind of a static character. It's kind
of interesting that like she wants other people and expects other people to change, like Roy and Jamie to change, but she herself doesn't.
It's not a great reflection on that character at the end of the day. I mean, with Dr. Sharon, though, it feels like.
I mean, I think I'm thinking of which I kind of would have liked to see like those two interact, like her go to Dr. Sharon.
We
see Roy going to Dr. Sharon, so.
Yeah. With Dr. Sharon, I think the reason we didn't go back to her, honestly, is the fact that we kind of said everything we needed to with her and Ted last season. I mean, to a degree, we kind of like she solved, not solved because it's the ongoing process, but essentially she made the major strides she needed to with Ted, and we see that, okay, she's still keeping in touch. And because we opted not to have him tell her about Dr. Jacob, that's, it's just unfortunate. That's the only time we really could have brought her back. So it's, it's only so much we can do. And even so, we just kind of kind of plot that.
It would have been so interesting for Dr. Sharon to have done a therapy session with Rebecca in light of her anxieties about not being a mother in the future.
Yeah.
Instead, she goes to a sidekick.
See, that, in retrospect, that might have actually, probably one of the better way to incorporate. Yes, if we incorporate with other characters, I don't think Keeley, though, because again, Keeley just feels like.
I know, but it would
Keeley doesn't really feel like she needs therapy.
But it would have been a way to bring her into the fold.
No, you're right. Yeah.
I think it would have been honestly. I feel like Keely and Barbara would have been cool as like PR people or been running the business side of the team. And Barbara, I think she's a funny enough character that I think she would have pretty interesting interactions with the rest of the football team, and her with Higgins or her with Roy, just like any of the people. I think Barbara would have bounced off of because she's that like good of a character.
Yeah.
Okay, before we get out of here, is there anything special you want to say about Dottie?
I wish that she would have appeared, like they would have like hinted at her earlier, and like how like it's just kind of funny how like Ted just walked by like howdy, and he's like,
Mom?
it's like it is kind of interesting how she was in London for a week and didn't say a word to Ted.
I mean, considering how Ted is as a person, it makes sense for Dottie to be that way because I think she wants to be supportive and not be a burden to people. So her being there for a week and not letting Ted know, it's her way of thinking. It's like, oh, I want to be there for my son, but I don't want to be there in a way in which he feels burdened by my presence. Because
Well, yeah.
Ted definitely has that kind of like way of interacting with people where like he'll be there, but he'll be there in a way in which he wants to make his presence like not too much of like a burden or hassle.
But I love her brief interaction with Rebecca too. It's just like, and how I mentioned this earlier, but with Rebecca being like, "Thank you for creating like one of the nicest people I've ever met." It's just like such a nice sentiment coming from Rebecca. Just like she hired this idiot that like she's someone she thought was an idiot,
Mm-hmm.
and was like planning on like sabotaging the whole thing from the beginning, and now she's like personally thanking his mother for creating him.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really love that sentiment. Like everybody, and of course her interactions with the team, telling him all the stories about Ted.
My favorite part for Dottie is when she's at the bar with Ted, and it's like, oh, like when she's remarking upon the beer she's had or the drink she's had at May's bar. It's like, oh, this is the best beer I've had since like that one Irish bar in Topeka, and it's like, oh, and Ted's like, oh, don't say that to May. It's like she'll get insulted, or the Topeka part or the Irish part.
Both.
And then she says it to May, and May like it's you could read it both. You could read it either way, where it's like May's mad, but she's putting on a front for Ted, and the Rachel likes Dottie, or she took it as a genuine compliment.
Again, and then it is kind of interesting that her interactions with all the other like members of the Diamond Dogs kind of like led to like the only like time that Ted actually shouted in this season. He's like, "Some of us need to go coach." It's like, has he ever shouted like that before?
When
I
he
think
was
they're all being loud with the whole Dottie thing, so I don't think it's like him like yelling. I think it's just him just saying it's like someone's got to coach.
When he was led Tasso.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like, well, yeah, but that wasn't Ted Lasso. That was Led Tasso.
Well, I think the point that's being made in that particular scene is that like we're all our own people, but I think whenever
I get the point there. I'm just saying it's like my only point was like it's like the only time that he shouted like the whole season, and it was only just to talk over people.
All right.
But sorry, Rohit, go on.
No, I was gonna say that like I think that scene was supposed to illustrate that like for our collector how normal we are. Remember what Ted's line was? Is like, hey, if you want an instruction manual to find out how people are nuts, just like talk to their moms. So I feel like that is kind of a seed to where when his mom is there, he's out of sorts. And in light of his breakdown in terms of his monologue, or in terms of his conversation with his mom at the end, like Ted's like emotional baggage with how his mom like openly or didn't openly express her dealing with his dad's suicide. It's very, I think was both funny in that it's like we all have been in a situation where like our parents can be a little too much with our friends, and we kind of have to like push back or just kind
There
of
are unresolved issues with the mother.
Yeah, but also just like as just a regular person, like your mom will always be embarrassing to you.
Like she's always telling these stories, but she's always like exaggerating them. So it sounds like Ted did these amazing things when they were like more down to earth things.
It's like when he was arrested and stuff like that. It's like
Yeah.
I was actually 15, and the only reason we got arrested because he was throwing gang signs out the car.
Yeah.
It's like he was apparently, and also apparently also they told him he was almost a drummer for Coldplay.
Exactly. And was it Barry Manilow concert? Bruce Springsteen? That was
Yeah,
that it?
Yes.
it was a Bruce Springsteen cover band.
Yeah, Bruce Springsteen cover band. Yeah, we I mean, also again that thank you thank you scene. Again, I like that Jamie inspired that in Ted, but also it was sort of like fitting into the kind of forgiveness thing where it's like kind of forgiving his mother for her faults. And the idea that the mother was like doing the best, she wasn't doing this to hurt him or like doing this insensibly. It was like she didn't really know how to perceive that guilt, like not perceive the grief, and was just basically putting on a happy face, kind of a can-do attitude just to get through it, which is what Ted adopted, and because of that, it was always stuffing down like the feelings and everything, and that's what, again, origin of the panic attacks potentially, on some level.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, again, the mother did bring closure. It's the shame that it came like her like, you need to see your son. It's like, okay, we kind of spelled it out a little there at the end. Like,
Well,
yeah,
I feel like that part's like
Your son misses you.
yeah, your son misses you.
It's like, I know, I miss him too. It's just like, yeah, well, that's kind of like the thesis. That basically becomes the thesis statement for the 3 whole seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Rohit.
I was gonna say that's like, I mean, that point was kind of already like well rung home when like the whole "Hey Jude" thing. It's like, I feel like her saying that was like, okay, we already kind of knew that. And especially with the opening, it's like Ted being like somewhat despondent and and Henry going away. But I did like sort of how she did the Irish goodbye thing that Dr. Sharon did to Ted, but it was a little bit more,
She left
which I don't think makes a lot of sense because I know this guy over in Ireland. It took 20 minutes to hug everyone.
So maybe it's an Irish goodbye to non-Irish people.
Yeah.
Which is just a regular goodbye, I guess.
Yep.
Think basically, yeah. Is there anything else we're missing?
I mean, yeah, it's a long season, but I think we got it.
Oh, I really appreciated for when like Nate is playing the violin, his dad comes in and he just breaks down crying. It's like, you were a genius. You're able to see things that no one else does, and
Like, yeah, that scared me.
Yeah, I just want to be happy, and it's like, and it's kind of interesting for Nate to be playing the violin because I think of like Mozart and Salieri,
Mm-hmm.
and like how like Nate's
Mozart.
Well, I think like Nate's whole thing is like the whole like him correcting. It's like, oh, I actually said Wunderkind, not Wonder Kid,
Mm-hmm.
and just the whole insecurity about him being respected as just a person with genius. But it always, but I think Ted kind of impacted something in Nate because Nate is able to be in a place where before he was just a lowly guy that aspired for more but didn't think he could have it, to now where he's been to the top and he's at a lower place and he can come back to the top, but it's not like the main driver, and he's comfortable with who he is as a person and doesn't need to feel like he has to prove himself to be worthy of admiration and respect.
Yeah. So Nate ended up in a good place, and of course they have the Richmond stat. The Richmond is once again under the management of Roy, with assistance from Beard and Nate. And of course we have Sam officially joining the Nigerian league.
Well, the Nigerian team.
Yeah, the Nigerian team, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is nice. So basically everyone ended up in a better place than where they started.
With the exception of Rupert.
Well, of course.
Yep, I love the writing was on the wall with that guy already. He knew and they kind of set up to the fact that he was like under fire for stuff with his assistant, and this is probably gonna be his last shot at at Glory, and it was already, the fact he blew it and shoved the guy and everything.
I mean, the whole thing is kind of weird. It's kind of weird if you think about it. I mean, not what happened with Rupert. It's just like there are other kinds of things. It's like, oh, it's like this rich person with their other, but rich person and their employees, things like that. That happened a lot in this show.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. I guess, considering how Rupert acts, though, and how Rebecca acts, like, I can...
I mean, I'm not saying anything.
No, I know what you mean. I totally get what you mean about that. But I think the way Rupert ends, it certainly pays off something that Ted mentioned to Rebecca after Ted meets Rupert for the first time, or after the gala or party thing. Like, Ted tells Rebecca, it's like, you're not alone in knowing who he really is. And where Rupert ends, now everyone sees Rupert the way Rebecca sees him.
Yeah, it is nice.
And it's kind of tragic because when you think back to, like, before this, when things ended off with, like, Rupert, like laughing with Rebecca and all that stuff, I think the fact that Rebecca rebuked him, I think put him down a spiral, because Rupert, I think in his mind, like, he loved, he loved football. He loved owning a football team. But then to just sacrificing and selling out parts of himself, like, I think there's a part of him, and I think it was definitely displayed in the second last episode, where it's like, he realized he had a good thing with Rebecca and he threw it away. And just him really be monomaniacal over like the Reputation's football team led to him losing his reputation with both West Ham and with Richmond, all in one fell swoop.
Yep.
So basically, everyone ended up in a better place except for Rupert
and Jack.
And Jack. Well, she's in Argentina, so
I mean, she's still rich.
Yeah, she's still rich. I mean,
no, I
mean, rich people still have problems, Dragon.
Nah.
Blue Dragon, one of your favorite characters is a rich guy who has problems, lots of problems.
Well, yeah, but he fights crime.
Yeah, but he still has problems.
Well, it doesn't mean that. All right, never mind.
I mean, you know where we're coming from on this, right?
Well, yeah.
No, but actually, but in regards to Jack, I think so. just as a quick aside, so someone pointed out that in the magazine stand at the airport, I think someone zoomed in and there's like a corner of the magazine where it says like Jack is not Daddy's little girl anymore, which makes me think it's like she must have got disowned or whatever. It's like, man, hoisted, that's her comeuppance.
I know that's the thing. It's like comeuppance there, but it doesn't feel like Jack just seems to just walked away from the relationship. I'm not really seeing any.
That's true. No, yeah, you don't see it on screen. And Shani just launched her star, like her app. That's mentioned in the news or the magazine. It's like, man, these characters were just kind of there to just take up time, and it's like,
yeah. Man.
It's like the whole mini golf thing too, just like.
Also, the whole psychic thing, like I feel like that could have been done differently, or just been excised altogether, and maybe Rebecca was just seeing signs and trying to like maybe thinking something more supernatural, or more like, oh, there's some plan, rather than just having the whole mom psychic thing. I do love when the three guys at the bar, Paul, and I forget the names, but the three big fans in the pub are like telling Rebecca's mom's like, oh, does that make you the grandmother? And she's like, no.
Like that was kind of sad, actually.
In hindsight, yeah.
It's like the mother we had never had. Like, does that make you the grandmother we never had? No. It's like I just said, like, I thought it'd be nice. Like, speaking of those guys really came around too. Those three guys.
Yeah, they went from being like the Greek chorus of Ted Lasso to being, shareholders in the football team.
And of course, May seems like she got a lot of the shares.
I mean, considering how much she probably hosts the players in her pub, like I feel like she should get, if not the lion's share, at least the lion's den.
Wouldn't a lion's den be more than a share?
No, I just trying to make something. It's like if not the lion's share, at least like
Besides, lion den has different connotations where you.
No, that's what I was thinking. I'll scratch that. Hey, let me rephrase that too. If she's not getting the lion's share, she's at least getting enough to be equivalent to a pot of gold that has Sour Patch Kids in it.
All right, that's very different than a lion's den.
No, because I'm referring to and
I know.
Ted said at the end, like he wishes that at the end of the Red Bull, instead of a pot of gold, it's just like a swimming pool, an inflatable swimming pool full of cash and Sour Patch Kids.
Yeah, that would be nice. I don't even like Sour Patch Kids, but that does sound nice.
Neither do I, but I do like cash.
I mean, I do too. So, Dragon, do you think there's anything else we need to mention?
I mean, I think we got it. I think just on the series overall. I mean, again, Ted Lasso again. I think we're in agreement. Season 1's still probably the strongest, but the overall again still just triumphant tale of a man with a mustache. Who
it's a powerful mustache.
Yep, powerful mustache. Who changed a lot of lives, inspired a bunch of players, and put a lot of good into the world when we really needed it.
Believe.
He wrote that on a construction paper sign, and it became magical.
He made them believe.
Yep.
So, all right. So I guess final thoughts time then.
Well, that was my final thoughts. So what do you guys got?
All right. I guess. All right. I'll leave Rohit to go left. So I'll go. It's like yeah. I will go with what you said, Megan. I think Season 1 was that lightning in a bottle that we needed, that kickstart, that jump. It was like, I mean, that just paid. I mean, I didn't watch it until just a few months ago, as you guys know. But from the way everyone talked about it and everything, and the way from what my reaction when I watched it was like yeah, that was just the lightning in a bottle. I mean, like that was like it was like perfectly paced. The comedy was on point. The drama was great. It had the heartwarming moments you'd expect out of a show like this. It's like. Season 2 had, I think, still carried on. It still had some of the best moments in the whole show. And this is probably the most uneven season out of all of them. I still think it went on too long, but I think where it struck I think at the end and throughout a lot of it definitely stuck the landing, and it is kind of sad to see it go. Go ahead.
Ted Lasso is a show that came and went with a significant impact. It's a show that had great characters, in certain times, good to great writing, and really important messages in regards to masculinity, mental health, about the power of optimism, and just the overall value of people. And whether that's a family, a team, or a town like Richmond, we can all believe.
This is the Richmond way.
The Richmond way.